Welcome members to this full council meeting on the 13th of February 2025. I'll now announce the fire evacuation procedures. There is no fire drill planned, so if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the committee staff and leave by the exit nearest the large screen at the front of the room and proceed down the fire exit to the courtyard. Once it is safe to return, councillors will receive a text message. Officers will also advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Webcasting. We are recording the meeting this evening. The webcast will be transmitted live to the Council's YouTube page and will also be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering St George's Suite and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and training purposes. Before we start, members, earlier this month, 2 young lives were lost in an accident in Pitsea, Roman and Darcy Castleton. We will stand for 1 minute's silence in memory of them, and in this time of grief, we say to the family and friends, you are in our thoughts and in our prayers. Thank you, members. Thank you. Item number 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence at all? I have no apologies for absence. Moving on to item number 2, declarations of interests. Before I seek declarations of interest, I wish to draw members' attention to the advice I have received from the Councillor's Monitoring Officer that in relation to item 7 of the agenda, we will consider the report on the budget of the council and council tax. The Standards Committee have endorsed blanket dispensations in relation to members' interest as a council taxpayer or leaseholder for the purposes of these reports. Therefore, members do not need to make a formal declaration of interest on these items. I shall note on other registrable interests for Essex County councillors, but whom will not be required to withdraw. Are there any further declarations of interest? Councillor Ansell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest in item 10 on the agenda. This item relates to my disclosable pecuniary interest as a director of a business that operates in the planning industry. So I'll withdraw from the meeting for the duration of that item and I will not vote. Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Ansell. Any further declarations of interest? That's none. Thank you. Moving on to item 3 in the minutes. Do I have your agreement by general consent that the meetings of the council meeting held on the 16th of January 2025 are a true and correct record? Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, announcements. I would like to remind councillors of my Cockney charity dinner night. That's happening on the 14th of March in aid of St Luke's Hospice. If you are free and available and willing to come, I'm sure it'll be a great time for all and we'll be raising money for a very good cause. So just a reminder there, thank you. Do I have any further announcements from the Deputy Mayor, Leader of the Council, Cabinet members and Chairman of the committees, Licensing, Audit and Risks, Planning, Standards, Appointments and Appeals Committees? No? Do I have any announcements from the Chief Executive? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I'm delighted to have been appointed as the Chief Executive of Basildon Borough Council. I'm in my 4th week here, and it's been a privilege to take on this role during a time of exciting transformation for Basildon. I'm excited to work alongside all members, all councillors, to ensure that the community receives the service that it deserves. I'm committed to meeting with you all over the next few months so that I can understand the priorities for your areas. I'm committed in ensuring that we have a workforce that delivers, and whilst there has been a period of instability and uncertainty, I'm now here to ensure that Basildon Council continues to provide exceptional services for our residents in future years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, and I'd just like to say welcome on behalf of the Council. Item number 5, petitions. I've not received any petitions that have been submitted. Item number 6, action taken in response to motions agreed at the last meeting. There are no updates to note. Moving on to item number 7, the full general fund and HRA budgets and council tax setting 2025-26. Before I invite the Leader of the Council to introduce his report, I wish to advise members of the procedure I intend to follow in connection with this item, which all group leaders have been advised of in advance of this meeting. As has happened in previous years, I intend to allow all group leaders, or in their absence deputy group leaders, additional time to speak on the items. The Leader will have 20 minutes to introduce the report. I will then allow each group leader 10 minutes to speak on the main item rather than the 5 minutes provided in the Constitution. All other speeches will be timed at 5 minutes per speaker. With regards to the budget amendments, I shall ask that these be circulated at the start of the usual break. I will allow sufficient time in the break in order that amendments can also be properly considered by the various groups. I will then ask that they be moved and dealt with when the meeting reconvenes after the break. Speeches on each amendment will be timed at 5 minutes per speaker, including any member moving an amendment. I intend to allow group leaders to move their group's amendment if they so wish, even though they would no doubt have already spoken on the main item. There will be no provision to wind up on amendments before the vote. The debate can then return to the substantive, and any member who didn't speak before the interval on the main report will have the opportunity to do so. I will then give Councillor Callaghan 10 minutes to wind up at the end of the debate. Okay. I now call upon Councillor Callaghan, Leader of the Council, to present the report. He does not require a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I reflect on the 12 months that have passed since the last time this council was asked to approve a budget, it is fair to say that the tectonic plates have somewhat shifted. In the space of just 1 year, this council has seen the election of a new administration, the election and appointment of a new leader and chief executive. We have a new government in Westminster with the second largest mandate in British political history. We have seen the election of a populist local MP, and we have had it confirmed within the last 10 days that after 50 years, local government is to be reorganised and Basildon Council to be abolished. For one of those things to happen in a municipal year would be challenging. For all 5 to be happening in 1 year is extraordinary. So it makes the budget setting round even more important. As members, we are not just setting the budget tonight, we are being asked to set the direction for the beginning of the end and the start of a new era for our residents and our businesses. As we do so, we need to reflect for a moment on what the public have been telling us. Why have we reached these series of moments? What does the public call for change tell us? Not just in consultation responses or in the outcomes of elections, but every day in their interactions with councillors. We have entered a new political era in Basildon, a context that will profoundly shape how this council must operate. It is imperative that every councillor and member of staff recognises the forces at play, because these will determine how we organise and deliver services, where we invest, and how we change lives for the better. Locally, we are standing on the precipice of populism becoming the dominant force in our politics. No political party or group in this chamber is immune from its influence. Populism thrives in conditions of instability that is born from a failure to deliver on the promises of conventional politics. Stagnant living standards, high taxes, high spending, low outcomes in public services, rising crime, and a generation with no meaningful stake in society. Now, the public has heard politicians offer solutions before. Experience has bred scepticism, and their faith in the familiar approach is waning. So, will we continue to raise taxes whilst also cutting services? Will we suggest that we can deliver less and expect people to just accept it? Populism is a response to the failure of conventional politics to take bold, principled stands, to defy the norms when the status quo no longer works. It feeds on grievance, on a growing anger that things are getting worse, not better. It is fair to say that over the last 9 months, as I have prepared to set this budget, I have been faced with resistance. People keen to protect, dare I say it, a failed Treasury orthodoxy. A belief that we can see our residents solely through the prism of how much money we can fleece from them, whilst cutting their services, reducing outcomes, and having little to no positive impact on their life. So I faced a choice when setting this budget. Will we fuel that grievance, or will we quash it by delivering something better? Will we give people reasons to believe in the power of politics again, not through words, but through action? Strong decisions, measurable results, a real stake in our society for every Basildon resident. If we are serious about renewal, about meeting this LGR moment, we must not ignore the warning signs. The time for hesitation and half measures is long gone. It is time for big structural change that delivers. And that is what this administration has chosen to do. We believe in our borough, and that is why this is a people-powered budget based on 5 key aims for 2025. Firstly, this budget delivers on the key promise made at the 2024 local elections. And let me say this as simply as I can. From the week commencing the 28th of April, weekly black bin collections are back. Every house on every road in every town will have their black bins collected every week on our watch. A monumental failure to reform the waste service, which left this council with a £2.3 million overspend, has been reversed. A better service offering the public better outcomes, cheaper to run, improving residents' lives, delivered by this administration. And let me say, the first decision I made back in May as the incoming leader of this council was to ask Councillor McGurran to get this over the line. I think we can all agree that his work to turn this service around means he fully deserves his title as the King of the Bins. And of course, it was His Majesty that back in July decided to reinstate the crunch service. 5 weekends across all 5 towns, thousands of residents taking to the streets to make use of the service. And so successful was it that I'm pleased to announce that in 2025 and 2026, we will have a further 6 crunch weekends across our borough. And we're not stopping there when it comes to the environment and leisure. We also received £50,000 from the Labour government to invest in enforcement action on fly tipping. Our grounds maintenance services have been protected. Unlike the Tories, we won't cut the service, we'll just cut the grass. A better service offering the public better outcomes, cheaper to run, improving residents' lives, delivered by this administration. Mr Mayor, as we prepare to leave Essex County Council, we will begin work on exiting the South Essex Parking Partnership too. Kerry's happy.
Likes to say no.
At present, Basildon Council is missing out on potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds in parking enforcement. Not anymore. This year, Councillor McGurran will bring forward plans on taking this service back in-house, and we will reinvest the monies into enforcement across the council. Mr Mayor, in May, the private sector told me that they had lost faith with Basildon Council. This wasn't a council that they could do business with, particularly on regeneration. No vision, no plan, no interest. That was the verdict from 3 years of missed opportunity. 9 months on, and it is a completely different story. Basildon is moving into 2025 with ambition, energy, and a clear vision for the future. Over the next 12 months, we will see a transformation of Basildon not seen since 1949. In May, we will submit the Phase 1 of the Westgate Master Plan, which includes a mix of hotel, retail, and residential development. By December, we will submit Phase 1B of the plan, this time bringing forward a new arena and modern office space, adding vibrancy and opportunity to the heart of our town. But that is just the start. Alongside the new Town Centre Advisory Board, work is underway on a full retail strategy for Basildon and Langdon Town Centres. Alongside this, we've already invested £190,000 on improvements to Basildon Town Centre's public realm, including lighting, wayfinding and urban greening. In Pitsea, we inherited a phantom community diagnostic centre, never funded and not real. Thanks to the incredibly hard work of our brilliant regeneration team and the fantastic Pitsea Labour councillors, we managed to persuade the new Health Secretary that the Pitsea CDC should be funded, and we're delighted that work has already begun on site. We're excited to announce that the work on the Eastgate Hospital, the former Debenham site, starts this month, and we have managed to ensure 80% of the work will be NHS appointments, helping to clear the COVID backlog. Meanwhile, Wickford's new supermarket is just weeks away from planning applications being submitted. Mr Mayor, like you, we believe in the power of arts and culture to bring our communities together. Following the success of Creative Basildon, the Museum of the Moon, and £250,000 of Arts Council England funding, we'll continue to invest in the arts and culture across our towns. In 2025-26 alone, we will secure more than £2.4 million in grant funding, ensuring that these projects flourish, and this year will also see the launch of a brand new state-of-the-art football hub. Who knows, we may even find the next Niall Quinn and Kevin Phillips on the streets of Las Vegas.
We want more than that.
Importantly, who's the greatest striker ever to play in the Premier League? Importantly, as we move forward with the Regulation 19 consultation for the local plan in the autumn of 2025, we'll establish a comprehensive infrastructure map to ensure the borough's growth is well supported. Let me be clear on this point. Those who refuse to support building homes for local people because of concerns over infrastructure are making politics small, shrinking it down to the size of their own fears and limitations. This is Basildon, a new town, built for returning heroes. Politics wasn't small when Clement Attlee decided to build this new town. In the 76 years since, it has never been deemed impossible to build schools, roads, railway stations, GP surgeries or hospitals. We've built them all. So why in 2025 do some in this chamber act as though it is beyond the realms of possibility to do it all again? Feeding the politics of grievance with your own small-minded ambitions won't achieve the outcomes you think it will. It will only hold us back and diminish the potential of our borough. The people of our borough are looking for bold leadership, not excuses. If our predecessors could build an entire town, we can certainly rise to meet the challenges of today, and if you can't, move on. You will not be missed. So whilst I do believe that the narrative on infrastructure must be confronted and combated far more strongly, I do want to offer greater protections in relation to green spaces. That's why Councillor Brown is launching the Green Guarantee Scheme, giving protective status to every green space not allocated in the local plan. Our message is simple: these spaces will never be built on. On housing, the budget reports the position of the HRA for our tenants. Members will note that we have invested an additional £16 million into the repairs and maintenance of our council properties. This is due to the diabolical state that our housing repairs service finds itself in after 3 years in which the Tories completely lost control of housing. We all know as members that the current performance of this council's largest contractor is not acceptable. Repairs are taking too long and they are botched. So whilst I am investing more in the repairs service, I want to be clear with the public. If drastic improvements to the service have not been made and outcomes improved for residents by Christmas 2025, I will sack Morgan Sindall. Now, Mr. Mayor, I know I don't look it, but I'm 36 years old now. Unable to save a deposit for a home of my own in my 20s, I was forced to live at home with my parents until the age of 32. For 10,000 young people in our borough aged between 20 and 34, that is the reality that they face. It is incredibly frustrating. In fact, it is soul destroying. Putting your dreams on hold, not getting married, not starting the family you dreamed of, never having your friends round on a Saturday night, never feeling like you had a stake in society. It is a national scandal that we have so many young people in this predicament, especially in the southeast of England. We cannot be the first generation in post-war Britain to actively make life harder for the next generation. We need to build Basildon's young people houses, and we need to help them make sure they have access to them here. Our housing developments must deliver for local people, giving them real opportunities to step onto the housing ladder. That is why tonight we are announcing two major policies. Firstly, I am amending the Basildon First Charter, extending the requirement for developers to market homes to Basildon Borough tenants first from 3 months to 12 months. Our message to developers is simple. If you want to build in Basildon, you build for Basildon's people first. For 1 whole year, homes built in Basildon will solely be for Basildon people. And if I have to take the fight on this policy to the desk of the Secretary of State's office, then I say to developers, try me. Second, to help first-time buyers even more, we're launching the first-time buyer mortgage guarantee scheme, giving local people the security they need to own their first home. Councillor Brown will bring to Cabinet a report setting out how we will use affordable housing contributions from developments to build a fund for the first-time buyer mortgage guarantee scheme, helping young people born and bred in our borough ensure they have a future in our borough. Now, it is clear that 2025 marks a pivotal moment for the borough as we push forward with this ambitious plan. But I also know that for many people living in the private rented sector in our borough, they would like to see greater protections and enforcement action. We agree. That is why in April 2025, Councillor Smith will bring a paper to Cabinet to begin the process of introducing a private landlord licensing scheme. Our aim is clear: raise housing standards across the borough's private rental market whilst generating a minimum of £1 million of revenue annually. Every penny of that profit will then be ring-fenced for community safety and enforcement initiatives, creating safer, better quality homes for our residents. Mr. Mayor, we will be relentless on housing. It is too big a crisis to waste time and to put half measures in place. Since taking office in May, we've made significant progress in securing £16.4 million for affordable housing and infrastructure. This has included over £11 million in funding from the Labour government to deliver 91 new council homes. We're also tackling the cost of living crisis and improving housing quality. We expect to hear this month if we've secured £15 million to retrofit 1,500 homes by 2028, significantly cutting energy bills in our council properties. Tonight, we're launching the Better Basildon Homes scheme. This will include a new, exciting modular housing project delivering 86 temporary accommodation and social rent homes within months, not years, here in our borough. Our HRA build programme has been bolstered by a further £16 million to mean that we will add a further 300 brand new council homes to our stock over the next 5 years. In May, I committed the council to fixing the catastrophe we inherited from Councillor Schrader on temporary accommodation. His failure to act meant hundreds of families in cramped hotels and B&Bs.
Shame.
Not on our watch. In 9 months, we have invested over £15 million in capital purchases for temporary accommodation, taking families out of unsuitable bed and breakfast placements. This includes 65 units secured in Wickford, 41 units secured in Billericay, and 158 units purchased outside. And we're going further. We're strengthening our homelessness support by securing a further £2.4 million to support rough sleepers and homelessness across our towns this year. Mr. Mayor, we know that right now many in our communities do not feel safe enough. The catastrophic decision of the Police and Crime Commissioner for Essex and the Chief Constable to all but close Basildon Police Station and sack frontline officers has not helped in this regard. Quite how he cannot make his sums add up is a mystery to most, and we must be on standby for further fights with the force's out-of-touch hierarchy in the months to come. But alongside intervening to save the PCSOs, here at the Council we will take bold steps to improve safety, tackle antisocial behaviour and enhance community wellbeing across Basildon. Yesterday, Councillor McGeorge hosted Basildon's first ever Community Safety Summit, bringing together security experts, police and key stakeholders to raise safety standards across all 5 towns of our borough. It was clear from the discussion that the current Community Safety Warden scheme is not delivering the outcomes that the taxpayer requires. However, more does need to be done. As part of the monies I have allocated from the private landlord licensing model, we will explore how we can go back to the more successful community warden model we launched in 2021, as well as invest in new technology and CCTV. One of the most frequent concerns from residents has been street lighting. So we will work with Essex County Council to turn the street lights back on across our We will work to ensure that they will be on all night and at full brightness from the autumn of this year. Mr. Mayor, Wickford has faced unacceptable levels of commercial crime and ASB in its high streets in recent months. This is an issue that Councillors David Harrison and Alan Ball have raised with me numerous times. I agree with them. I also agree with my mother, who raises it with me every week. More needs to be done, and more can be done. In 2019, I purchased the Wickford Police Station as part of a Sempra acquisition. For 6 years, the building has sat empty. Not anymore. This morning, the Chief Executive and I visited the site, and we have agreed that the Wickford Police Station will reopen in 2025 as a community safety hub, giving residents better access to support and enforcement services. In addition, each area committee will also be provided with a fully funded list of community safety proposals, including new CCTV cameras, giving local councillors the power to choose what's best for their areas from the £500,000 pot we are allocating to them once more. Mr. Mayor, we're also committed to making Basildon safer for everyone, especially women and girls. This year we've launched the Women's Safety Charter and submitted a bid for a Make Space for Girls project in Gloucester Park and Basildon Town Centre. In Wickford, we're partnering with the Town Council for a Safer Streets bid, which will bring a full-time town centre warden, new antisocial behaviour signage, CCTV and gate inhibitors to Netherden Park to improve safety and reduce crime. We're passionate about keeping Basildon active and healthy, and to support this work, Councillor Ferguson has secured more money from Sport England to support local organisations, help residents stay active. As we prepare for change, we're also focused on supporting our community with their mental health, social isolation and financial hardship. That is why Councillor Yacoub has launched our own social prescribing digital platform backed by £50,000 investment. Mr. Mayor, there's also some exciting news for families. The miniature railway at Wat Tyler Country Park will officially open for Easter 2025. Now, our fifth and final promise for 2025 is to back Basildon's businesses. Mr. Mayor, with the number of homes we are to build and the number of town centres we are to regenerate in our borough, this will provide jobs for life for Basildon's Brickies, Chippies and Sparkies. But it is also crucial to ensure that we have the next generation of men and women ready to work on the tools. And that is why tonight I am delighted to announce that Councillor Power will bring a report to Cabinet in May to officially establish the Basildon Construction Academy. This will be a game changer for our borough's future. The Basildon Construction Academy will be at the heart of our skills and employment strategy, supporting every young brickie, chippy and sparky to find a job for life here in our borough. We're investing in skills, business support and partnerships. The Basildon Business Awards will launch this year. Our Basildon Alumni Project will also launch this year. The Billericay and Wickford Business Improvement Districts begin this year. Mr Mayor, Basildon has been leading the charge on local government reorganisation across Essex since July. We've set the pace, shaped the conversation and built the momentum for a stronger, more unified future for local government in this county. But as this once-in-a-generation change moves closer, Basildon cannot be left behind. Change on this scale and pace is not for everyone. I have to be honest, alongside our Chief Executive, I am not yet convinced that the scale of this moment has fully dawned on our organisation. Too many of our services are not ready for reorganisation. Serious questions need to be asked and answered about the future delivery models of HR, finance and legal services. We cannot continue with decline at the very moment we need to be raising our game. I am clear Basildon won't be passive observers in this process. We must remain at the forefront of shaping the new unitary authority, ensuring our residents and businesses don't just adapt to change, they thrive in it. So to ensure we remain in control of our own destiny, I am putting £1 million from reserves to support the council's transition. Now, whilst we don't expect to use all of it due to government capacity funding, this provision is a safety net to ensure Basildon isn't playing catch-up while others race ahead. We have led the charge. We won't be left behind now. Mr Mayor, in 1 year, this council has experienced seismic change. We are now standing on the cusp of structural reform not seen for half a century. The abolition of Basildon Council by 2028 is no longer a hypothetical, it is a reality. The future is coming and it is coming fast. Basildon wasn't built on fear of what can't be done. It was built on a view to the art of the possible. I still believe that it is possible to create a Basildon where people feel proud to live. I still believe Basildon is a place where young people see the borough as a place of possibilities to start a family, buy a house and start a business. I still believe Basildon is a place where first-class infrastructure is within reach, where Basildon is a place where you can learn the skills you need to secure a job for life. I still believe Basildon can be a place where people know their council is on their side. Basildon is brilliant. There is so much good happening across the 5 towns of our borough, and this budget helps to make the place we all live, work and raise our families even better. We are delivering on our promises. We are fixing the bins, regenerating our town centres, building homes for local Basildon people, making our community safer and backing Basildon's businesses. After tonight, this council will only ever set 2 more budgets. Basildon can either be a council of the past or a council that represents the future of local government in Essex and beyond. For the 42 of us, we are privileged that it is our decision to make. The only question you really need to answer with this budget tonight is, do you believe in Basildon?
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. The matter is now open for debate. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The one thing the leader did say that is right is Basildon is a great borough. The towns are a great set of towns. The people are a great set of people. A set of people that have shown over time entrepreneurness, the ability to actually be resilient in crisis, the ability to actually care for people in need. I'm minded when the Ukraine situation first kicked off, Basildon residents were one of the first to start sending relief supplies over to Ukraine. And we can be incredibly proud of the communities that are built around Basildon. That's the only thing I do agree with to an extent, because what we saw there was a smoke and mirrors budget from a smoke and mirrors administration. Because on one hand, he talks about crime and the need to actually address crime, quite rightfully, but then the fact of the matter is the funding for the community wardens has been scrapped. scrapped, not repurposed, taken away. When you look at what this administration has done in the last 9 months, they've actually done nothing. They've sat there promising things, but they've done nothing. They haven't even sorted out the bins yet. The king of bins, the king of spin, because the bins will be sorted out, but not now. So the bins haven't been sorted out. I had my bins collected on Tuesday, the same service, the same bags, the same process. Nothing has changed. We've seen misdirection, we've seen gaslighting, we've seen smoke and mirrors. He talks about the 2.3 million underspend. He knows full well that that was not related totally to the changes that were made by us in the waste refuse service. And you can laugh all you like, but it doesn't alter the fact that truths are truths, hyperbole is hyperbole. Tell that to the people that are going to have to pay double for their green bins when they were promised that they weren't going to have to pay double for their green bins. The grass cutting, when you have a look at it, it's still the same level of service currently, which they promise more, but actually promising more and then delivering less is still actually less. We've seen cuts to twinning and Basden side by side, without even the courtesy of informing those organisations that their funding was going to be cut. When I have one of the chairmen of one of the organisations that had their funding cut ringing me aghast about the fact that he found out via one of the schools where the children are now being deprived from a trip because they can't afford it, and it was the first he'd heard, that is a massive failure of communication and courtesy to our communications. We've seen the play areas, the refurbishment for the play areas across the borough suspended. We've seen play area funding suspended across the borough, so that our youth, the young children of today, can't even go out of their own doors and actually enjoy the areas that they were looking forward to enjoying. We've seen the borrowing at a ceiling for the council. The borrowing of this council is as good as out of control. And why is the borrowing out of control? Because it's the gamble of Councillor Callaghan that devolution will solve all ills, that somehow, when they merge with Thurrock and its huge debt, the government will wipe it all away. It's that roll of the dice on the table, hoping that he will get a 7 rather than snake eyes. It's a massive, massive gamble. So we have the council's finances at a knife's edge, about to go off a parapet. We've had loads of hyperbole about promises and belief. We've had very little delivery and just the promises of more. What I do agree with Councillor Callaghan, and I applaud it, is that Basildon Home should be for Basildon people. And I know that Councillor Callaghan has a very good working relationship with developers and therefore is ideally poised to be able to deliver on that particular promise. But what we need to be aware of is the governance and how we ensure and what mechanisms we put into place that when developers do develop homes, that they are actually for the Basildon people. Because we have seen time and time again in this borough where we have been promised something by a developer and then they've tried to have us over in the fullness of time. We've seen promises about trees being saved and then cut down overnight for the residents of Langdon, will remember that. We've seen promises of Section 106 money, which has never come through. So if we're going to actually ensure that developers build for Basildon people, that there is an enforcement mechanism to ensure that those Basildon people actually move in to the homes that are being promised. And also what we see is the burial fees are at 5%. So once you've actually gone through this tax-ridden Labour administration, you can't even die without actually facing an additional cost to your burial fees. We've seen a government, which the current administration should be in sync with, given that it is their own party, that actually made a promise about employees' national insurance and then have defaulted on it, in putting a huge cost to this council in fulfilling that promise. So what we've heard is a lot of hyperbole, a lot of vision, a lot of promise, which is to be applauded, but very little substance, a lot of smoke and mirrors, and what we have is a council financially on the brink of catastrophe. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baggett. when members are speaking, please have the courtesy to listen carefully, and then you can use your own reply to respond to what they say. Thank you. Okay, go. Any more speakers on this item? Yeah, Councillor. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has been particularly insightful to see the new administration's approach to the budget. Interestingly, I distinctly remember a leaflet published by the Labour Party in their efforts to get the Wickford Independents elected, claiming the council tax was at record levels. Not to be outdone by Labour's fondness for tax hikes, this administration has pushed council tax to a record £304.56 for a Band D property. Let's also not forget the broken promise to reduce the green bin charge to £25 and freeze it for 5 years. Instead, this change is being increased, as promised in this lovely leaflet here. A good example of this burden is the national insurance increase imposed by the Chancellor, which has left this council to pick up the pieces. The government has not fully covered the cost of this rise, meaning the local taxpayer is footing the bill. Had national insurance rates not been raised and the threshold had not been cut, we could have been looking at a council tax freeze or perhaps even a cut. Who knows? The reality my constituents have faced over the past year are cuts to investment set aside for Wickford and Wick Meadows. For example, 15,000 was stripped from the Wick Community Centre, while funding can be found for the Freelands Community Centre, even though officers advise me we don't own the centre. Now, I'm not criticising whether Freelands may or may not need the money, but it's unjustifiable to cut funding for the Wick Community Centre while diverting funds elsewhere for a similar purpose. And this isn't even covering the cancellation of the proposed play area at the Wick Country Park, a well-used facility and one I remember from my own childhood. That's £80,000 wiped away when, had the administration followed through, children could have had a brand new play area to enjoy by this summer. I'd even push for the additional 20,000 in that 80,000 to ensure it was of the highest quality, but that too has been shamefully taken away. Just between these two cuts, it's nearly £100,000 that's been removed from Wickford. Now, looking at the area committees, we see that more than half of their allocated budget is left unspent, while next year's budget has mostly been swallowed up by the Pride teams. The administration should not be cutting the Pride team funding by 50%. They do excellent work. Meanwhile, the budget for the area committee remains the same as before, despite taking on additional responsibilities such as community group funding, the crunch funding, and now Pride teams. Ideally, I would prefer the crunch service to be funded permanently as a core council service. This would ensure, if you do as an amendment, I'll vote for it. This would ensure it is properly planned, reach all parts of Wickford and the borough, and allows residents to plan accordingly rather than forcing communities to compete for ad hoc services. Now, just thinking back to investment in Wickford, I'm reminded of a debate in 2021 when we were promised a Morrison's supermarket. Instead, we have now an eyesore, thanks to the deal orchestrated by the leader. Despite warnings from Councillor Buckley about serious concerns regarding Morrison's commitment, but perhaps on the Conservative benches we could organise a whip round to buy a copy of The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. It's only $13.79 in WH Smith's, and if my colleagues won't contribute, £14 is a small price to pay for avoiding leaving that site empty and derelict. What I think the leader should consider is a feasibility study to compulsory purchase the site to deliver a supermarket without flats and bring in a community diagnostic centre similar to the one currently being developed in Pitsea. That would be 2 birds, 1 stone. The feedback from residents on local community forums has been unequivocal. No flats. My proposal would deliver real benefits to Wickford and the surrounding area, especially given that my constituents currently have to travel to Runwell or Billericay just to get a blood test. Finally, Mr. Mayor, the administration has failed to consider the true cost of devolution. I know that a document has been shared with the council leadership regarding the financial viability of a proposed merger with Thurrock, and its findings make for sombre reading. We cannot press ahead with a plan that we already know is financially unworkable. Instead, we should allow residents to have their say for a referendum on the proposals for a mayor and unitary authority A full and open campaign on both sides would ensure maximum transparency and a debate on the way forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Yacoub is not present, so I'll go to Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, it's a privilege to be able to address Council tonight as Cabinet Member for Culture, Sport and Community and be part, as we've heard from the leader tonight, of an administration of service that has put the community at the heart of everything we do, with our goal to be able to make our community proud of Basildon once again. And what a difference a year makes. Managed decline has been replaced by ambition and aspiration for all. And in my own portfolio, that was summed up by the very first question I asked when I was appointed in May. What is the Council planning on doing to celebrate our 75th anniversary, one of the greatest creations of that revolutionary 1945 Labour government? And the response? Absolutely nothing. It was as if they were ashamed of our borough. It was as if they were ashamed to be able to acknowledge the celebration. Absolutely nothing to celebrate one of the greatest creations of our borough. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've done over the last 12 months. To work with Creative Basildon, we've brought the moon to the borough. And yes, there is still time to be able to go to see it tomorrow night. The silent disco tickets, if you're available on Valentine's night, are still available. And we've also been able to work with Creative Basildon to generate £250,000 of income to enhance our People and Places programme this year that will ensure arts and culture are accessible for all. Just last week, I was privileged to be able to go to Wat Tyler Park and see the incredible work being done by Dan to be able to develop the miniature railway. And I'm looking forward to being able to go on that for its opening in April. But we also know that there are some incredible challenges that we still face. We can't hide from them, but we can face up to them and challenge them. And there is no greater area than we face that than health. We see the inequalities within our borough. And we've finally got a government that is getting a grip of the crisis and fixing the broken health service across the board. And seeing the announcement tonight, for the 4th month in a row, the NHS waiting lists are finally declining, and that we've got a government that's getting a grip of the challenge. We've got a council that is committed to doing our bit too, with the work that the leader has announced in bringing forward the proposals and getting spades in the ground on the Community Diagnostic Centre, making a real difference to residents in the heart of the community. And I particularly want to praise the work of our officers to be able to work with our health partners, to be able to make sure that the Community Diagnostic Centre has got an activity centre fit for purpose that the residents and the members of the Picty Activity Centre can be proud of. And when I talk of activity centres, I'm so proud of our commitment to maintaining activity centres and making sure that they are a place that residents can enjoy. I know the difference they make to our communities. But we aren't just talking about building health facilities. We're not just building health facilities. We're also taking programmes into our community as well. Over the coming months, we will be developing a programme of fellows fairs, taking health initiatives out to our sports clubs across the borough, being able to capture individuals at the time and place where they are. We're announcing and we're investing in our new data platform to be able to enhance social prescribing across the borough, making sure that residents are able to access the support at the time that they need it. A healthier community is a safer community. Now, some of you might know, I've got a little bit of an interest in sport. And within days of coming into post last year, I was proud to be able to work with officers to develop our Summer of Sport campaign, a 10-week programme that saw activities being rolled out across the borough for residents of all ages at low or no cost, working with our partners to make sure that activities were there for all, taking advantage of the unique opportunity of the Euros, the Olympic and Paralympic Games. It was a summer of sport that led to the highest levels of sports participation that we have ever recorded. And I'm incredibly proud to announce tonight that our Summer of Sport programme will continue this year, and once again with the backdrop of the Women's Euros, which I hope we'll retain, and see us once again continue to provide activities for all. We are announcing tonight Basildon's largest ever running festival that will lead to a half marathon, a 10k run and the Basildon Mile being able to take place. Sport is flourishing within this borough. And with the extra £1 billion that we've been able to leverage working with our Active Essex partners, we will be making sure that sports programmes are there for all over the next 3 years. We're bringing forward plans for our football hub within the borough. And tonight we're launching in partnership with local leisure facilities our 25 by 25 campaign to make sure activities are there for all. And when I talk about my portfolio, one of the incredible highlights has been travelling around the borough, meeting our community groups, from the voluntary and community sector, from the friends of groups, to dance classes, from youth clubs to sports activities, from activity centres to food banks. And I want to be able to thank all of our community groups for all they do to deliver vital services for residents across the borough. And what I've been able to do through those meetings with residents, through those meetings with groups, is talk about how we can reconnect with our community. And that starts with us. The work that we've been able to do in launching the area committees, ensuring that all 42 members of this council have a real stake in being able to make real decisions that affect residents in their local communities, with funding being attached to them, so that councillors can fund priorities that they want to be able to support. That is something that we should be incredibly proud of. Mr. Mayor, the Basildon story is a good story. The Basildon story is a story that we should be proud of. Ambition and aspiration is back, and it is ready to create the next chapter of our story. This is an administration facing the future. This is an administration working with residents to shape that next chapter of our story. This is an administration with a budget to deliver on the people's priorities and a budget that I'm proud to support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Yaku.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We all knew that setting this budget after the financial mismanagement we inherited was never going to be easy. But while councils up and down the country are being forced to slash services, this administration is balancing the books whilst investing in our borough and tackling the biggest budget pressures head on. We're fixing the bins, and it's costing us less than the fortnightly bin collection chaos that the Tories inflicted on us. And while they continue their self-destruction on the hill of recycling rates, clinging to a broken system, we are passing a budget that takes the bins out every week and takes trashy Tory policies out with them. Councillor Schrader once promised to revolutionise housing when he had the brief. Instead, his failure to tackle temporary accommodation pressures meant the only thing he revolutionised was his ability to fail in record time. That's what I would call gaslighting, Councillor Baggott. But here's what having a plan and executing it actually looks like. We have secured 274 units to alleviate temporary accommodation pressures, and we have a long-term plan to ensure that we never end up in this crisis again. As part of my portfolio, we have secured £80,000, enabling us to procure a strategic data partner to develop a temporary accommodation use case. This will allow us to use predictive analytics to anticipate homelessness spikes before they hit. This is what it means to be a next generation council. Innovative solutions that put us in a powerful position where we're not just engaging in reactive firefighting, but we are staying ahead of challenges. And whilst the previous administration fled from all things technology, as if it was a Windows update they kept on postponing, we are leveraging innovation to transform how we serve our residents. So let's delve into the numbers. In just my portfolio alone, we have secured over £500,000 in new grant funding, with more in the pipeline to come. This includes the £80,000 to drive data-led improvements in temporary accommodation, £300,000 from HSO and Microsoft to expand on our digital transformation, covering software, staff training, and IT infrastructure. We've secured £7,000 from Microsoft's AI Readiness Grant, £15,000 through the Cyber Assessment Framework, because as we advance, security must advance with us. And we have won an additional £146,000 in PropTech funding to create a GIS-based digital platform, making planning data more accessible. We have saved £100,000. I'll try to. We have saved £100,000 through the implementation of AI within the council's translation service, offering a more intelligent solution for residents and replacing an out-of-date and costly service. Every pound that we secure for local taxpayers is a pound that we've invested in smarter, stronger services. This year, rolling out game-changing projects. From April, our in-cab technology will go live, creating a smarter, more efficient waste service. Councillor Ferguson and I have been working on bringing forward a brand new social prescribing platform, including a first-of-its-kind social prescribing pod, ensuring that digital transformation is not just about efficiency, it's about health, well-being and people. We have AI trailblazers that have been set in motion for a 12-month programme. We will be launching a completely refreshed website and an AI-powered chatbot by July. A new members portal will be tested this month with a full rollout by June, ensuring that members have the digital tools to optimise their casework. And there's more, Mr. Mayor. A new housing management system, a new asset management system will modernise how we manage housing and all council assets. A digital contact centre will go live by the end of this year, opening new casework channels via social media and instant messaging, making it easier than ever before for our residents to get the answers they need. We will deliver a data-verse platform, keeping our promise to become a data-driven council. When we say that residents will get a better service, we mean it, and we have secured the investment to prove it. This budget sets us up to be a council that innovates rather than stagnates. We're not just keeping up with the digital age, Mr. Mayor, we are defining what it looks like in local government, and we are doing it with residents at the heart of every decision. Our digital transformation and AI readiness project will unlock £2 million in savings as set out in this budget, all whilst putting Basildon on the map as a trendsetter. Mr. Mayor, I am proud of everything this budget delivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Yaqub. Councillor Westwood.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Basildon is a great place to live, work and raise a family. But we all know it can be better. That's why this Labour-led administration is focused on real action and real results. We have set out 5 clear priorities: fixing the bins, regenerating our town centres, building homes for local Basildon people and making our community safer, and also backing Basildon businesses. In just a short time, we've already made real progress. Every resident deserves a clean and reliable waste service. That's why we promise to bring back weekly black bin collections. And just a little heads up to the opposition. Save the date, the 28th of April. We've also worked to make waste services more efficient and easier for residents to use, unlike the previous administration, which left the council overspending by £2.3 million, and they couldn't even order the right recycling sacks. They told us weekly black bin collections were impossible. Well, guess what? Within 12 months, we have delivered what the residents wanted. Weekly collections are happening. If the opposition need a lesson in how to run a waste service properly, they can book a meeting with the king of the bins himself. Now, we are continuing to support the Pitsea Community Diagnostic Centre, a real game changer for local healthcare locally. Now, this centre will bring quicker diagnosis with faster tests and scans, reduced hospital pressure by freeing up urgent care capacity, easier access, cutting down on long waits and unnecessary travel, and better health outcomes through early detection. This investment puts the patients first and brings healthcare closer to home. Now, for a decade, Basildon residents have been forced to live in darkness. The Tories switched off our streetlights, making our streets less safe. We are working with Essex County Council to make them realise the reality of our unsafe streets. We are taking action. The lights are coming back on at full brightness across our borough this year. On top of that, we're giving every area committee a fully funded list of community safety proposals, including new CCTV cameras. Now, our young people deserve real opportunity and spaces to go, after school and on weekends. That's why in 2025 we will be bringing forward plans for multiple youth zones across our borough. These spaces will provide activities, support and a sense of community, something that the previous administration, for some odd reason, did not want. Now, a strong local economy means more jobs, more investment and a better future for our borough. That's why we are backing Basildon businesses, making sure they have the support they need to grow and thrive. We're taking action to boost our local economy, unlike the Conservatives who spent years holding it back. This is the difference between Labour action and Tory inaction. No more delays, no more empty promises. We're delivering real results today because our residents deserve better. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Westwick. Councillor Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, so much has changed over the nearly 12 years I've been on this council, and maybe if Councillor Callaghan has his way, it's heading towards its end. They love the borough so much they want to abolish it. But the more things change, you know, the more they stay the same. Some things, Mr. Mayor, do remain reliably consistent, like a Labour budget. As Councillor Baggott said, heavy on fine words and lofty aspirations and barefaced dishonesty, light on delivery and value for money, and as always, accompanied by a lot of premature, self-congratulatory backslapping from the front bench. Now, before I speak to the general fund, I'll just briefly speak to the housing revenue account, but I shan't follow the example of my successor, who likes to preface his remarks with, "It's not for me to criticise my predecessor," and then proceeds to slag me off. Because at the end of the day, in relation to the rent increases, he's in a difficult position. He probably doesn't have a great deal of choice, but there's no getting around the fact a 2.7% rise in social rent is hardly to be welcomed, and tenants will certainly feel the pinch. I also see, despite my plaintiff pleas, Safe and Sound has been scrapped. I had a love-hate relationship with that scheme, it must be said. I've not been coy about saying I found it a slog and frustrating, and almost as soon as I started I understood why no one had tried before. But I felt then, and I feel now, that putting together the estate improvement plans was worthwhile, and I'm left wondering what the plan is now to address the fabric of our estates. I worry we're kicking problems down the road. And the forgotten estates are going to be forgotten again. I would also caution against over-reliance on modular homes. When Sanctuary took over Swan's modular housing stock, they were far from complementary. So again, we run the risk of storing up problems for the future. But that's typical of the whole budget, Mr. Mayor. It uses gimmickry and grandiosity to shove tricky matters aside. And what does this budget really deliver? An above-inflation council tax rise, cutting the community support community safety wardens, £1 million for local government reorganisation nobody wants, yes, increasing parking charges. Not a single person in this borough has ever raised it on the doorstep, that's all I can say. You're increasing parking charges.
Councillor Schrader, you mind pausing a moment? Thank you, Councillor Schrader.
And as Councillor Baggott mentioned...
Councillor Schrader, hold on one moment, thank you. Okay, so could we please listen to what he's saying and what each and every member in this chamber is saying, and then respond during your speeches? Otherwise, this becomes a bit of a circus, doesn't it? Thank you, thank you. Councillor Schrader, you may continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Bless you. You're increasing parking charges, which hurts our high streets. You're increasing burial charges. As Councillor Baggott mentioned, there are cuts to community groups. Citizens' Advice are losing £100,000 They co-located in this building, and even with all the challenges faced by residents, with cuts to winter fuel, cost of living, you've cut what I'm told will amount to 10% of their total funding. But easily the most terrifying element of this budget, and the main reason I won't support it, is the precarious debt position. Indeed, I shan't put him on the spot, but I suspect it's taken the 151 officer to the limits of his endurance and what he's prepared to sign off. I note the mid-term financial strategy still has £2.4 million of unidentified savings and efficiencies. That's a not insubstantial sum of money to be left in the budget unidentified. Meanwhile, our reserves by 2026-27 are positively anaemic. The business rates equalisation reserve is particularly low, and that's supposed to be our safeguard against businesses defaulting or the loss of a large local employer, like, God forbid, Ford's. Mr. Mayor, this is not a balanced budget. It's a budget that leaves us dangerously over-indebted. It places a heavy burden on hard-pressed residents. It indulges in fancies and fripperies at the expense of our communities, and does so on the wing and a prayer that come local government reorganisation, their mate Angie will clear the credit card and wipe the debt when we're merged with bankrupt Thurrock. But there's no such thing as council money, government money, only taxpayers' money. And by hook or by crook, it is the taxpayers of this borough that will pick up the tab. For one thing does remain a constant. Eventually, Labour always run out of other people's money.
Thank you, Councillor Schrader. Our next speaker is Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ever since the Labour group took control of the council with support from their loyal band of independents, they've constantly heckled the Conservative group. Well, give us a chance and then it'll be our turn next year, hopefully. Next year. They've not been cancelled yet. A hike in council tax, increase in rents that will only affect 30% of residents who are not on benefit. Who will pick up the slack for the huge rent and council tax arrears that will increase because residents' pockets are stretched to the limit? Will these residents be pushed onto benefits? No, they will not, because they are over the threshold, the same as having their winter fuel allowance snatched away. Having read the Cabinet Member Services and Efficiencies report, this budget does nothing for our community-minded residents and volunteers who deliver projects and services over the borough for a fraction of the cost of public services. It covers a list of budget cuts made to community group funding, affecting a considerable number of projects and services caught up in the cost of living crisis, when external funding has become increasingly difficult to obtain as external funders are hit by government cutbacks. In May this year, 4 scrutiny committees were set up: Overview, Resource, Policy and Community. These committees meet monthly to scrutinise performance and services, but for some reason not the Community Engagement Committee. They've met just the once in January to discuss sanctuary housing. Why was that? When the Cabinet Member report on efficiencies and savings cut budgets and ceased funding to voluntary community groups. Councillor Ferguson, why did you not bring these proposals to be scrutinised at the January committee while we were sitting there twiddling our thumbs? It would have given these groups the opportunity to speak for themselves and question the cuts. These cuts have resulted in £100,000 cut to the activity centre budget without proper consultation with the centre users, or an explanation which they fear could result in the closure of activity centres. Funding of £10,000 per year to Basildon Side by Side was ceased. whose main aim was to increase community cohesion vital to our diverse communities.
This is not a conversation. Please let the member finish her speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Cease funding of £12,000 to Basildon Twinning, who over many years have flown the flag with French and German counterparts, where excellent partnerships have grown and produced many projects, particularly for our young people, valued at far more than their £12,000 budget. An example of the cut is to the Greenstead Primary School Twinning project, Never Forget. The funding cuts have caused the school a shortfall of over £3,000. The school are calling to help to fund the shortfall to allow the children to attend the trip. I call on you, Councillor Ferguson, to reinstate the twinning funding. The CAB budget has been revised down by £100,000 per year, a service that helps residents manage debt and seek much needed advice. What will happen to all those residents badly needing advice on rent, council tax, winter fuel, food, general cost of living problems? The cab capacity will be greatly reduced and cause much more poverty in Basildon. And what about our youth whose funding has ceased on outreach work? Maybe the youth home will be resurrected. Well, I think that's been spoken about this evening. But maybe from Councillor Callaghan, who's probably got a few £1 million in his back pocket.
Excuse me.
The community.
Come on, Mr Mayor, that is not appropriate. Lindsay, what are you going to do about that?
Shouting.
What are you going to do about that?
Councillor Brown, thank you. Right. Is there anything to be done? Report anything you wish to the monitoring officer. Not at this moment. Thank you. We do it officially through the right
Absolutely
tracks.
unbelievable and unnecessary. Unbelievable. You should be embarrassed.
Thank you. That is concluding that.
All of you.
Councillor McGowan, thank you.
Calling this council into
Councillor
disrepute,
McGowan.
you should all be embarrassed by that.
Councillor Brown.
Shame.
Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
Anything you wish to report to the monitoring officer after the meeting, you may be perfectly entitled to do so. At this moment, we will continue with the debate. Thank you.
Move from the meeting now.
She's calling this council into disrepute and this leader into disrepute. She should not even be in this chamber. Completely embarrassing.
Mayor, on a
Thank you.
On a point of order.
Point of
I don't know
order.
which number it is, but I'd like to move that the councillor who made that statement be no longer heard. So I think that's outrageous. I might not agree with Councillor Callaghan on some things, but suggest something like that to another member of this council is the most outrageous thing I've heard since I've been a member of Basildon Council.
You've only got qualified privilege.
Please could you refer to the point of order that you wish to refer to? Thank you. I'll give you a couple of minutes.
Mr Mayor, I retract what I said about Councillor Callaghan and I apologise. I did not mean,
That's out of
I
order
did not
until you
mean
have
it
answered
as
me
it
on my point
sounded,
of order.
and I would like to carry on.
Right, okay, so you've referred to a point of order, a motives without notion, that the council immediately votes upon whether or not councillor mentioned shall be no longer heard for this meeting. So under the rules, I have to call an immediate vote on to that. So all those in favour, please indicate.
Shane.
Yeah, just take the vote again as it's passed.
Okay. All those against?
Oh, Shane. Danny, you're better than that.
Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. That motion has been passed, and so for the duration of this meeting, you may no longer contribute to the debate. Thank you, Councillor. Back to the normal point of business. We now hear from Councillor Palmer, her maiden speech.
My glamorous assistant. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm delighted to be making my maiden speech today to welcome this budget and speak about the vital improvements we're making in arts, culture and sport across Basildon, all matters close to my heart, and why this matters so much to families in Pitsea South East. We've been clear from the start. Our communities deserve more opportunities, not less. Over the next year, we're bringing in over 2.4 million in grant funding to support arts, culture and sport across the borough. This funding will help expand initiatives like Creative Basildon, building on the success of events such as the Museum of the Moon and the £250,000 Creative People and Places programme. This isn't just about cultural vibrancy, it's about giving people, especially young people, places to thrive and belong. Yes. And that's why we're bringing forward plans for multiple youth zones across Basildon. These spaces will offer somewhere safe, creative and inspiring for young people to go after school and at the weekend. It's about showing our commitment to their futures. Alongside this, we're investing in park gyms in every park and working with Sport England on a £1 million 3-year funding programme to make it easier for families to stay active and healthy. Initiatives like these are not just good for physical health, but for mental well-being too. Under local government reorganisation, we will be better equipped to deliver even more for young people. We'll have access to additional funding streams and the opportunity to build a more joined-up approach to youth services, bringing together education, community programmes and support services. This budget is a step in the right direction. It prioritises our young people, enhances community spaces and builds on things that matter most to the families in Pitsea South East. I urge my colleagues to back this budget. This is an investment in our borough's future. It's an investment in our children and in stronger, healthier communities.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Congratulations on your maiden speech. Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and well done, Councillor Palmer. This budget promises to fix the bins, regenerate our town centres, build homes and make our communities safe and deliver for our residents. We are also backing Basildon businesses. Basildon's always been a place of hard work, ambition and innovation. Our businesses, big and small, are the backbone of our economy, creating jobs, driving investment and shaping our borough's future. That's why we will keep backing them. So I'm happy to announce that in my portfolio, with further funding, we are continuing the Basildon Business Boost programme, a scheme that's already helped local businesses grow, innovate and create new opportunities. Whether it's funding, advice or networking, this programme will ensure businesses in Basildon have the support they need to thrive. And we're not just supporting businesses behind the scenes, we're going to celebrate them too. And we will finally have the Basildon Business Awards. From small startups to major employers, from apprentices to business leaders, these awards will showcase the very best of Basildon businesses. Mr. Mayor, Basildon is a place of talent and skills. Hidden gems of businesses involved in exciting things such as filming blockbuster films and music videos, developing technology used to capture the very best images of nature, and many using their experience and business acumen to give back to the community. So let's shout about what we have going for us and the success we have here in this borough. Let's change the narrative that people from Basildon amount to nothing. Let's talk about how great we really are. Yeah. The Basildon alumni will shine. The Basildon alumni will shine a light on those that have gone on to great success to show what is really possible. Basildon is home to 7,580 businesses that employ over 93,000 people. We've got major players like Ford, New Holland and Leonardo leading the way, and we're backed with an ever-growing economy of entrepreneurs, innovators, diversifying the business landscape. But we can't take all of this for granted. Businesses need the right people with the right skills, and that's where we need to step up. We know there are skills gaps across industries, especially in construction and engineering, and this will become ever present with the great plans that we have for regeneration and the building of quality homes in this borough. As well as the government's focus on investing in infrastructure. So continuing from the leader's announcement of the Basildon Construction Academy, I want to reiterate our support to ensure our residents are at the forefront of opportunities to retrain, upskill or start their career. We will continue to grow and expand the support and training offer that the Pathways programme has. Our young people will now have access to the support they need through various youth zones across the borough, and we will ensure we continue to introduce these young people to the opportunities available to them. We will see the return of the Basildon Business Skills Show this year, and it will be even bigger and better than before. Yeah. Making sure we inspire ambition, break down barriers, and ensure our businesses have access to a pipeline of skilled and enthusiastic workers for the future. We will be collaborating with the Thames Freeport to integrate Basildon into their skills funding initiatives. By engaging with these, Basildon can benefit from targeted skills development programmes and unlocking funding and ensuring that the local workforce is ready to meet the demands. Alongside this, we will launch an SME forum and a small construction workers forum to ensure the voices of these businesses and their needs are heard within the council and the wider community. There is nothing gimmicky about involving our businesses in key conversations and to support our decision-making processes. Through Meet the Buyer events, forming a Basildon Town Centre Advisory Board, supporting the bids in Wickford and Billericay, inviting them to discuss community safety, training them to support victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse through our Women's Safety Charter, and inviting them to network and grow, and most importantly, be involved in the future of our borough. Our businesses are at the heart of our borough's success. This administration has the ambition. We are putting in the hard work, being present and visible and getting involved. Yeah. We've got the opportunity and we all believe in Basildon. We know that by backing our businesses, investing in skills, prioritising employee wellbeing and celebrating this success, We're not only growing our economy, we're building a better future for Basildon.
Thank you, Councillor Power. I'm minded now to call a break. We have more speakers on the list for after the break, but during the break we'll have the amendments circulated for groups to look at. Okay, so I now call for a 20-minute break. Thank you. Members take their seats, thank you. Continue on with the debate. I now call upon Councillor Emma Callaghan for her maiden speech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to be called tonight to make my maiden speech on a budget that promises real change for the residents of Pitsea North West. It delivers progress where it really matters: housing, infrastructure, community safety, culture, sport and leisure. It represents value for money and a commitment to improve the quality of services that our residents rely on. But there is one aspect I particularly want to highlight: the Leader's ultimatum to the Council's biggest contractor, Morgan Sindall.
That's just all right.
Your fault, Mariam, all this upgrading law.
I'll do that line again. But there's one aspect I particularly want to highlight: the Leader's ultimatum to the Council's biggest contractor, Morgan Sindall. Tonight we have heard it in plain English. Dramatically improve your repair and maintenance services by Christmas this year, or we will sack you. As the chair of the Performance Scrutiny Committee, I've seen the figures, the reports, and most importantly, the feedback from residents. And frankly, it paints a grim picture. We heard it directly from residents through the Council's Tenant Satisfaction Survey. Over 40,000 outstanding repair jobs in 2024. Every repair target missed, some by days, others by weeks and months. Emergency repairs, which should take 1 to 2 hours, being left for up to a fortnight. Calls to the helpline going unanswered for days while residents waited in cold, damp and dangerous conditions. This isn't just a failure of the previous administration to grip this contract. It's about real people, real families, left to suffer in silence. It's about parents trying to shield their children from mould-infested walls. It's about vulnerable tenants living with leaking ceilings and faulty electrics for weeks on end with no answers and no help. It's a betrayal of their trust and a direct assault on their dignity. But tonight we draw a line in the sand. This budget brings hope, accountability and investment. £16 million of additional funding to clear the backlog of repairs. New communication channels, including drop-in sessions where residents can speak directly with council officers. And above all, a decisive message: we will sack Morgan Sindall if they do not deliver. For the first time in years, this borough's residents have a council that fights for them. A council that puts their needs above corporate convenience. It's fine. This administration stands for everyone across the borough, not just those in the north of the A127, from Pitsea to Laindon, Wickford to Billericay and every community in between. We never saw the Conservative administration stand up to our biggest contractor. They allowed Morgan Sindall to mark their own homework, reporting high satisfaction rates every month without scrutiny, while residents were ignored and left to suffer. Well, those days are over. This administration believes in something better. We're taking action, holding people accountable and delivering change. Not in 5 years, not in the distant future, but here and now. Yeah. Because when residents speak, we listen. When there's a problem, we act. And when promises are made, they will be kept, like we have seen with the return to weekly black bins. Yeah. Promises made, promises kept, lives changed for the better. It's what happens when you elect Labour councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan, and congratulations on your maiden speech. I now call upon Councillor Larkin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to Councillor Baggott and also Councillor Sargent slandering Councillor Callaghan this evening, it's about cutting budgets. I have a problem with this completely. All the area committees have their own monies to spend, and so they have the choice where they spend it. Spend all the monies. They have the ability to support these organisations that they're complaining about, if they want to, that is. I have always believed in area committees, and the councillors that support their wards have the power in their hands to represent their own wards. They know, or should, where it must be spent. They have the choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Larkin. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fixing the bins, streetlights back on, and a further £1.6 million investment in housing repairs and Morgan Sindel on notice. This is a budget that listens to the residents of Lee Chapel North and works for all residents across the borough. For 3 years, I've sat through Tory budgets telling us nothing can be done, higher taxes for less services. Streetlights cut, no new council homes, grass left to grow unchecked, Morgan Sindel rewarded for shoddy service, fly tipping getting worse, and black bin collections halved while the council tax increases. And now we have my ward colleague, Councillor McGowan, His Majesty himself, delivering for all residents, returning the weekly bin service to the people of Basildon that they pay their council taxes for, and fixing the mess of the recycling system that Councillor Blake inexplicably rushed through just before Christmas last year, or the year before, despite knowing full well that the recycling bags were not fit for purpose and the infrastructure was not in place to implement his chaotic system. And because of this, we've been burdened with a £2.3 million overspend on our waste collections team. We're not given the support they needed to keep up with the demand. This administration is delivering the number one promise from the election last year and fixing the bins. Residents of Lee Chapel North raise streetlights with me more than any other issue, with the exception of fly tipping. And this budget brings us bringing us one step closer to switching the streetlights back on to full brightness after the Tories switched them off several years ago. Residents need to feel safe when walking home at night, and they need to know if something is happening outside their window at night, they can see what's going on. Under the last Tory administration, housing repairs got worse and worse. Residents expect a level of service that allows them to live in dignity while getting value for money for the rent that they pay this council. And while the Tories allow Morgan Sindel to get away with shoddy work and repeat call-outs, sometimes up to 4 or 5 times for a single job, this administration is delivering for our council tenants. Not just delivering for our council tenants, but purchasing more properties to alleviate the temporary accommodation issues we currently face and ensure that those in need in Basildon are given somewhere warm and comfortable to live in our borough. As chairman of the Resources Scrutiny Committee, my committee receives quarterly reports on council spending, and the 2 most prominent overspends in every report are the bins and housing repairs. This investment in the budget is addressing these issues and ensuring the council's finances are in a stable place while delivering more in 1 year of this administration than the Tories did in their previous 3. This is a budget that works for the people of Basildon after years of managed decline. Let's never go back to the Tory decline. Let's move Basildon forward and ensure that all our residents see the difference they voted for in May last year when we wiped the Tories off the map in Langdon, Basildon and Pitsea. Let's build a Basildon that's fit for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, last December, while I was out delivering newsletters in my ward of Pitsea North West, a resident came striding out of his home, thrust his copy back in my hand and said, "You can have this back. You politicians are all the same. You never do what you say you are going to do." Now, I do understand that sentiment coming from a community who believe in recent years that they have too often been neglected and overlooked. But today, I believe I can look my residents in the eye and say that on the things that matter most to the people of Pitsea North West, Basildon Labour keeps its promises. Because with this budget, we are delivering on their top priority and our top priority: fix the bins. You know, the waste strategy introduced by the previous administration has been a disaster. for the estates and the people of Pitsea North West. Black bin collection every 2 weeks was never going to be enough for our growing families and busy households, and the result has been unsightly and unsanitary piles of black bin bags accumulating on our street corners, which then get split open and spill out their contents. So this is not the only symptom we've suffered. A quarter of our way through the 21st century, we've also seen a plague of rodent traps appearing on our estates. Shame. And general waste has not been the only issue either. Residents tell me that the reusable recycling sacks are difficult to store, difficult to keep clean, and difficult to stop blowing away. So the move we're funding here to weekly black bin collections and single-use blue and white recycling bags will fix the fundamentals as promised. But we're not stopping there. We're also investing nearly £200,000 in in-cab technology and enforcement actions to give us the best chance of delivering a service and, more importantly, delivering neighbourhoods of which all our communities can be proud. Fixing the bins is not the only promise this budget aims to keep, however. As we've heard tonight, within it is a whole raft of actions aimed at regenerating our town centres, building homes for Basildon people, making our communities safer, and backing Basildon business to help us deliver on our top 5 priorities for 2025. You know, I do hope that that resident I met last December will enjoy reading in his next newsletter that with this budget, vision and action continue to replace the indecision and stagnation that were the hallmarks of the previous administration, and it has my full support.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to read this off of my phone. I hope you'll forgive me, but I realised last time my speech, when I read it off there, all you could see was the top of my head, and I'm worried about blinding the members opposite. I've listened with interest, to be honest, to the speeches tonight, and I have to say I am a little bit disappointed. I was expecting a few more rabbits out of a few more hats. I did want to talk about some of the things that have been said. You can't counter populism when you're in coalition with a populist. And whilst the leader's right when he says the populism is fuelled by cynicism around politicians' promises, he then hand waves millions of pounds in savings by simply saying things will be cheaper to run. I mean, what does that even mean? He talks about a green guarantee. I mean, putting the word guarantee onto something doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. That needs to be a process that goes through proper scrutiny and tells us that, and it tells me that this administration is planning for us to have to give up vast areas of our green belt. And we aren't the first generation to make life harder for the generation to come, for the next one. The fact of the matter is, they may not like it, but building in this country came screeching to a halt under the new Labour government of the late 90s. They were the ones that stopped house building in this country. They were the ones that took the easy decisions, which now mean we are faced with huge housing demand. It was not our generation that's responsible for that. It is that generation that previously came. He's talked about scrapping the community safety scheme, and I know that will worry many residents who have told us how much they appreciate them. Sacking Morgan Sindall. Well, I just hope someone's read the fine print and Morgan Sindall don't decide to jump before they're pushed, leaving our residents high and dry. I mean, I've got no particular love for Morgan Sindall one way or the other, but to publicly announce it in a meeting seems to me to be a tad reckless. Turning the streetlights back on. Okay, well, we'll have a look at that. It's something we can potentially get behind, but we'd need to see the costings. I do wonder if any of you have told Ed Miliband. He's already getting battered over Heathrow, and this one may well finish him off. I do want to make a point, actually, on the Basildon Construction Academy. Again, that would be something that I would welcome. It's something that I have actually been involved with. I've worked with the BIKBBI before around sort of apprenticeships and schemes like that. The one thing I will say, and I offer it as honest, friendly advice, it is very, very difficult to deliver, and you will need to think about where you get the skill set for that kind of thing. And I offer to support that if I possibly can, because I think it is something that we desperately need across the country, not just in this borough. Unitary authority, 1 million in reserves. Well, I've got real concerns about us being absorbed by an existing bankrupt unitary authority, and to find out that we're spending yet another £1 million on a scheme to put us in lockstep with an authority that is already running as a unitary, that says to me that we may well end up being absorbed, and yet we may end up paying for the privilege because they haven't got any money. This Labour administration always seems to struggle with numbers. They think that 23% of the vote constitutes a majority, and the budget decisions are just as questionable. Instead of prioritising real needs, they continue to rely on gimmicks that give the illusion of action. Residents need real long-term solutions, not short-term distractions. And we've heard a lot about supporting business, but there's an elephant in the room: national insurance increases for employers. These have devastated many, many employers. They've killed the hiring market, and they've done immense damage to the economic growth forecasts of the whole country and this borough. These tax hikes are placing an unfair burden on business. Well, you laugh, but it's true. If you employ people as I do, you will know how much these increases actually cost. And they genuinely have had the effect of forcing me to not recruit an additional member of staff this year. So I don't think it's funny. These tax hikes are placing an unfair burden on businesses, and this administration has done nothing to cushion the blow. And worse still, the Labour government promised to cover the cost of the increases in national insurance to the public sector, but it's failed to do so, leaving Basildon taxpayers out of pocket by 300k. And that's 300k that could have been used to support frontline services, but instead local people are being made to pick up the tab. Mr Mayor, this budget does not deliver growth, opportunity or stability. It does not protect residents from the impact of rising costs and mismanagement. It does nothing for rural residents who've been targeted in the Chancellor's budget. It prioritises gimmicks over genuine support, and it wastes money on solutions to problems that don't exist. I will not and cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor McGarren.
There was a surprise. I've got something of a confession for you tonight, which will come as a surprise to my parish priest, because he's been waiting for me to make a confession for quite a while, and apparently he's been looking forward to it, but I'll get round to it. I took some persuading to come back to Basildon politics, and the reason I took some persuading, Adele Brown was very persuasive, Gavin had his moments as well, was that I didn't want to be sat over there watching you lot over here do what you do best. Nothing. Absolutely jack. So I can't tell you what a pleasure and a privilege it's been to be part of this administration delivering, actually listening to what the residents said and acting on it. Councillor Baggett said, in terms of the bins, nothing's changed. Where have you been, Andy? Nothing's changed. It took the fella to your right 2 years to come up with a system that was absolutely rubbish, and then you couldn't admit it was absolutely rubbish. You pretended the sacks were brilliant until the good folks of Basildon donned the smocks and pitchforks and came after you, and then you pretended you'd ordered new sacks when you hadn't. Oh, yeah, that's the reality of it. I think you said something about young people not enjoying where they live. It was hardly surprising that young people or old people or anyone didn't enjoy where they lived when they looked like, you know, and I use the phrase third world. That's unfair. Most of the third world is actually fine and people do the best. This was self-inflicted municipal vandalism and put our residents in actual, the health in danger. So, you know, don't pretend that the system was working. It wasn't, right? You're talking about the crunch. Someone talked about bringing the crunch back. Us funding the crunch. Well, what you forget is you abolished it. And one of the most popular things I did immediately was reintroduce it. And next year, we're going to see it on a regular basis again, funded by the area committees, which is as it should be. You go on and on about, like, obviously Conservative Central Office send you some memos or something, because it used to be everything was the train driver's fault. Now everything is the National Insurance rise fault. Right? For the second time today, I'm going to say this. You sound like Virgil van Dijk last night complaining about the referee and Abdoulaye Doucouré celebrating in front of the Liverpool fans. You know what? My only criticism of Abdoulaye Doucouré was he didn't celebrate enough in front of the Liverpool fans. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. There's, you know, in terms of the bins, some serious concerns have been raised about recycling rates. I echo that, and we will do everything we can to raise awareness, education, etc., and enforcement to make sure we keep the recycling rates up as high as possible. But there's a bigger picture. My brief is environment and leisure, and the environment of our areas was a disgrace. So, you know, let's face it, that was the reality. We're fixing it, and we're fixing it come April the 28th. And I'd like to thank James Hendry at the back there. And he's not here tonight, but his colleague Alan Underdown has done a great job. And I have to say that, even though some of his family supports Glasgow Rangers, which I find very difficult, but there you go. The team have done an amazing job. I'll tell you what I find surprising, though. We've heard, you know, all sorts from you over there tonight. We had a cabinet meeting earlier where there was 3 items on the agenda, 2 of them really, really crucial to the future of this council, and something that I'm sure some of your members will be talking about in the future. You didn't bother to send a representative. You didn't.
Get an invite.
Oh, behave yourself. Really? 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 It's
always someone else.
It's amazing how often you don't get invites, how often it's someone else's fault, how often it's the officer's fault, and not yours, Andy, for being incompetent.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor McGarren. Continue.
Someone mentioned youth zones. I don't know how you've got the brass neck, quite frankly. Again, one of the biggest acts of municipal vandalism inflicted on this borough was by your administration in abandoning the youth zones. We care about our young people. We're going to deliver our... I think it was Councillor Barnes, I'm almost there. I think Councillor Barnes referred to the reserves. Let's hang on a minute. Parallel universe here. You burned through the reserves under your watch, but you delivered nothing. What this administration stands for, it's 3 words. It's simple. Try and remember these: vision, ambition, and most importantly, delivery.
Thank you, Councillor McGarren.
I've got to move the alternative budget.
You can propose it, yeah.
Sorry, can I?
Yep.
Right, in a slightly unusual move, I'm going to, in the interest of democracy, because I think it's important that the residents of this borough know what the Conservatives were going to suggest in their alternative budget, so I'm going to move the alternative budget. Do I speak now, or do I reserve the right to speak?
You can speak. Mr. Mayor, yeah, you can speak now to it.
No, this is your alternative.
Councillor McGarren. Councillor McGarren. Councillor McGarren. Address the chair. Thank you. You've spoken of substantive. You're moving amendment. You now may speak for 5 minutes on the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, the amendment. This is what. It's an amendment. It's an amendment. It's an amendment. It's an amendment.
It's an amendment by Councillor McGarren.
Just wait and see.
Just wait and see, Councillor Baggott. Wait and see.
Yeah. You might learn something. It's the first time for everything. Right, this is what the Conservatives would have done had they not bottled it at the last minute. And I think it's important our residents know this. They wanted to keep the waste system exactly the same as it is now. So fortnightly black collections and presumably the same rubbish sacks that stink the place out and blow from one place to another. That's what they wanted to do. They also wanted to scrap area committees, which is odd. No, it's in here. Councillor Schrader was lauding, taking credit on social media for the fact that there was a crunch taking place in Billericay, funded by his area committee. No hypocrisy there then, whatsoever. The point of area committees is to devolve power. You talk about attacks on democracy and stuff. Our aim in setting up the area committees, which are, in their infancy, but are, being funded more in the coming years, the idea is to give local people more control over decision making, not less. To give local councillors more of a say in their own areas, not less. I mean, some of this is just unbelievable. You're going to increase the grass cuts from 8 to 10 a year, despite the fact that it was you that cut them in the first place. The only investment that seems to be taking place anywhere is in Wickford and Billericay. There's a surprise, isn't it? Hey? Only investment in Wickford and Billericay. You're going to do a feasibility study for regeneration in Wickford? Anywhere else? Pitsea, Langdon, maybe? No, just Wickford. You're going to invest in a Wick Community Centre? Anywhere else? No, just Wick. Contribution to play equipment, you don't say where that is, but I'm probably guessing in Billericay and Wickford. You've got to scrap, I mentioned scrap area committees. This is a joke, quite frankly. The whole thing is a joke. Is this the level of your ambition? And it's typical of the previous Basildon Conservative administration. There's lots of things you want to stop, but very little you want to do. Where's the big idea in this? Where's the vision? Where's the ambition? There isn't any. So I would congratulate you on one thing, the fact that you didn't actually bother to bring it to the meeting tonight. Because actually it's embarrassing. So I would, whilst moving it, I won't be voting for it. You'll be surprised to hear. Thank you.
Councillor McGowan, do you have a seconder? You're a seconder, you'll be seconding it immediately. Thank you. Councillor McGilch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to keep this quite short and sweet because I've got quite a lengthy speech when we go back to the substantive. I've heard from several of the opposition regarding the cutting of the community wardens. There is an alternative budget here. No community wardens.
Yeah, strange that.
As an aside, at this point, the cameras are being worked on. Audio is clear, so everyone is aware that the audio is clear across and everyone can hear us, but someone is helping working on the cameras to make them correct. So, do anyone wish to speak on the amendment? I have Councillor Gavin Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So let's get this straight. Why are we here debating this tonight? I'll tell you, because for the last few months, the finance officers have been locked in rooms with the shadow cabinet member for finance, who's not asked me a single question all year about finance, but they've been locked in a room to come up with an alternative budget that they could present before the people tonight, so that we could see a clear contrast between our plan for the Basildon Borough and their plan for the Basildon Borough. At the 11th hour, almost, they have bottled it. So having spent all that time, all that officer money and resource, getting to a point where you've come up with a back of a fag packet Excel spreadsheet, you've decided not to come here and move it tonight. And I'd ask, why? Why do you not believe in your own budget? Why have you not got the minerals to come and stand up here tonight and tell us? And I tell you for why. It is because they are a complete rabble. You're seeing it tonight. That is not a group. They haven't got a clue who they're following, where they're going and what they're doing. And maybe that is unfair. Because if you look at the issue of the bins, let's just understand this a little bit more. So the Tories introduced a waste system that was so bad that it resulted in them suffering their worst election defeat in 30 years. It was so expensive that it resulted in the budget being £2.3 million overspent. It was so useless that the borough was left with piles of rubbish, fly tips and rats. It was despised that much that it resulted in the second highest ever number of respondents to a consultation with 8,000 people demanding change. And then here tonight, at their first opportunity to make amends, what is their plan? To do nothing.
That's what they do best.
To tell the public that they, the Tories, were right and the public was wrong. Imagine what it was like in the Conservative Party group room when they discussed this and Baggott agreed to keep the bin service exactly the same. It is like the captain of the Titanic trying to convince his passengers that icebergs are not that bad. The stupidity of this alternative budget is alive and well. And then we get to the issue about area committees. So they don't want area committees. Who's going to pay for the statues in Lake Meadows Park?
And the benches.
Who's going to pay the £14,000, more money than is being spent in the whole borough on twinning? They're apparently, they want the money for twinning, but they are not prepared to put any money in their own area committee for it. But they are prepared to spend £14,000 on a bronze statue to sit in Lake Meadows Park. And now they don't want to move ahead with the area committees full stop. So they've had 1 year of being connected to their communities, coming up with proposals to support voluntary organisations, charities, bronze statues, whatever else they want to come up with. And now they've decided that's like too much hard work. Yeah. We're not going to do that. We're gonna roll over. And then you look at some of the stuff they're coming up with, and I'm going to talk about this later on, but a feasibility study for the regeneration in Wickford. I mean, there's more equipped members of this council to opine on the state of Wickford, but my God, we do not need a feasibility study in Wickford. We have known for the last 5 years we need a supermarket in Wickford town centre. We had one. On the cards, on the table, ready to go. The deals were signed, the heads of terms were there, and what did they do? They decided to reverse the decision. And 5 years later, they're sat here now moaning that they're going to come up with a feasibility study. How long is that going to last? How long is that going to take to come up with any tangible planning applications that we can go forward with? So, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad we're having the opportunity tonight to debate the Conservative Party's alternative budget, even if they are now fricked and don't want to come to the table and debate it. But it is clear for everybody in this borough to see. They got booted out of office because they messed up the bins. Yep. And they have learned absolutely nothing.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Smith.
Oh, here we go. Chill out, chill out. I'd like to thank Councillor McGovern for tabling this, because we all believe in transparency and at a future date. But the Tories will refer to this and say, oh, we couldn't get this through and we couldn't get this. It's on the table, on the record. We can see what their priorities are. The leader said in his speech about their beloved town twinning. Why is that not in their alternative budget? You know, we did vote Brexit in 2016, and every time I've had the opportunity to cull it, they've come screaming to the rescue, doubling its money, and I see very little benefit in that. Just another way of trying to undermine Brexit. What may appear to look good on here is to increase the gas cuts and the summer prune, which they both got rid of. But have they forgotten the work of Councillor Westwick with his working group, referring to Councillor McGovern, to bring the service in-house? If we have a contractor that isn't doing the job, we fire. And there's a lot of parks in Basildon that weren't getting 8 cuts a year. As I said before, my cat Alf, the ginger ninja. He was like something out of one of these Japanese World War II films in the height for summer where they didn't cut the grass. Walking through that long grass, you could see it moving. He just needed one of them Japanese hats and a backpack. And Councillor Walter Brown would be out there going, Alf, Alf. People must have thought he was nuts trying to call the cat in for his lunch. So when we bring that service back in-house, it's just, we talk to James, go, James, why'd the guys miss that park out? And I know our officer, James Hendry, will be, let me come back to you, Councillor, regardless of political affiliation or not, he treats everyone fair and the same. So what might seem positive is unnecessary because that service is being brought back in-house. And then this rush to save county £100,000, they've just jacked up the council tax today. And moaning that I spoke about Basildon at length. I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about their parts of the world unless it's the multitude of sweeties they get. So let county find £100,000. They give it to big and they had a big budget bigger than Northern Ireland, a state in America, and they want to mug us for £100,000 for a service they should be providing. So in short, I thank Councillor McGurran because it also puts on the record, because we have had this debate at a later date when people have forgotten a year from now, and the Tories go, well, actually, Gavin's trying to bring back the bins, and we can say, no. I remember the May 2021 elections, I'm out putting me leaflets for the county elections on a nice sweet old dear saying, I've got this Conservative leaflet. Kerry, they're saying, you're pro-fortnightly bin collections. And I went, do you remember that campaign I ran in 16 to stop them when the Tories tried it then? She went, oh yes. So they're lying in their leaflet, and I went, you got it, girl. And she went, right, I'll have your poster. So it's handy to have this. So we'll have that in our doors when we have the election, and anyone sees any porky pies or Jack and Ori blue leaflets, I can show that to them in their own words, the Conservative alternative budget for 25-26, sorry. And one last thing, we're going to get moaned at for putting the council tax up by a mere few pennies each week, how it will break down. But that is to restore weekly bin collections. Yeah. They can't say they're the party of tax freezes or tax cuts. They know they've left the council in a terrible financial hole, and this modest council tax increase we're going for is needed to fix the hole they messed, the hole they left in our budget. So I shall leave it there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Westwick.
This is my first ever budget that I've ever obviously attended as a councillor. And whatever this rubbish is I'm holding in my hand is embarrassing for me to even read. Firstly, just like to address a few things to the opposition. Increase the grass cuts from 8 to 10 grass cuts per year. How comes when I was standing on this very spot, when I said and tried to pass it as a motion, none of you voted for it? Now, I would also like to remind you, when I was being very transparent in these chambers, talking about the residents of Pitsea South East that were getting hurt by getting caught in brambles and also playing on dangerous grasses, that again, none of you voted for it. I want to ask a question to you. Obviously, I'm not going to get an answer today. But do you actually care about your residents? Because from what I see on here, you don't. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I thought I'd keep it short.
Councillor Westwick. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'm standing to speak on this amendment because of all the benefits it provides to my residents in Lee Chapel North. Oh wait, no. All the residents of Langdon, Basildon and Pitsea, where less than a year ago they had 5 out of 6 councillors. Oh wait, no, none of that either. I guess the substantive budget was so good in these towns that it needs no amendment. This amendment shows exactly where the opposition's focus lay. Keep the disastrous waste system that resulted in £2.3 million overspend and delivered terrible service to residents all across the borough, and instead funneling money into Wickford to keep Mark Francois happy. Yeah. But let's go through what they're proposing. Bring back the crunch. which this administration's already done through the area committees. Pride teams in every area, which is being done through the area committees. Increasing grass cutting, which they cut in the first place. And a defibrillator in Wickford, which is a valiant proposal, but one which will cost £1,750 and could easily be done through the Wickford Area Committee. The committee chair sat right there, councillors. I'm sure if you have a word with him after the meeting, he'd be more than happy to add it to the next Wickford Area Committee agenda. Not only are they proposing all this unnecessarily, but they're proposing to scrap the area committees that these proposals could have been achieved through. Talk about shooting themselves in the foot. So I'm sorry, Councillor McGurran. After praising your excellent work in fixing the bins and my stated on the substantive, I'm left with no choice but to vote against your amendment. But at least you didn't go to the effort of bringing these proposals to the meeting just to chicken out of proposing them.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Yacoub.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight we've had Councillor Baggott talk about smoke and mirrors. We've heard Councillor Schrader accuse us of being all fine words and lofty aspirations, but light on delivery. Yet they've spent months tying up officers in endless meetings to draft an alternative budget, only to bottle at the last minute. It seems they are more embarrassed by the budget they've produced than they are by their own colleague, Councillor Sargent, who stood up tonight and maligned this council with rhetoric heavy on, and Councillor Baggott, you love this, hyperbole and light on substance. They will talk about premature self-congratulatory messaging. They stood up and claimed that our budget was built on lies, yet their own budget was so premature they scrapped it even before putting it forward. And we've heard tonight fear of devolution, even though they can't find a single person in the borough who thinks two-tier local government works. They've abolished the crunch themselves, yet their abandoned budget now proposes to bring it back. They slashed grass-cutting services, yet the same budget they were too afraid to present tonight plans to reinstate it. They are just undoing their own mess. But where they really should have had the sense, to undo their own mess, they are still clinging to fortnightly bin collections like it is their only lifeline. But Mr. Mayor, they are still getting the numbers wrong. You overspent on this, but according to Councillor Schrader, it's Labour that doesn't know how to count. They want to scrap area committees that gifted them more power over their own wards than we ever had when we were in opposition. This was a real act of advancing democracy, Mr. Mayor, the very thing that they claim to champion when shouting on Facebook about their own Tory colleagues at Essex cancelling elections. It's the same tired excuses every time. The agenda disappeared. The invite wasn't there. A bit like how their alternative budget mysteriously failed to materialise tonight. And did you see how Councillor Baggott reacted when Councillor McGurran was about to move their budget? It becomes your budget. Is that how ashamed of it you are? Wow. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Yacoub. Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 'Cause all I've heard this evening since the break is risible debate and risible comments. Now, you'd have thought that an administration that talks about vision and everything else would understand the basics of the Constitution. Now, the fact of the matter is, and I'm saying this for the residents at home that will probably be amused why 25 minutes have been taken up by an administration in control talking about something that doesn't exist. Because, of course, we're not moving a budget. We did work with officers in order to actually move a budget, because unlike the Labour group, who when they were in opposition wrote on fag packets and actually made them up the last minute or gave us amendments of one page, we intended to present a fully costed alternative budget. However, the reality is, when we discovered that every single time there was a meeting, more borrowing had been carried out by this administration, more spending had taken place that we weren't aware of, and that the finances were so catastrophic that we couldn't keep up with it, we had to be honest with the public, and that is, it was impossible for us to set a meaningful costed budget because of the prolificacy of this administration in both its borrowing and also its reckless attitude to the spending it's done. Proven tonight when they had a meeting, which I was not informed about, and democratically should have been informed about, so that they could have part 2 meeting behind closed doors, spending even more money, borrowing even more money at the taxpayers' expense. So for those residents that are watching, what they're asking now for us to do is they've taken a piece of paper which we're not going to move because we don't want to move it, and saying we'd like you to vote on something you're not going to move because we don't want to move it because we don't feel it's right, and therefore we wouldn't bring it to this chamber. So this is an administration that is going to con you, and all we've heard this evening is bins, 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 because that's the only game they've got. It's the only game they've got in town. They've talked about vision, they've talked about their ambitions for Basildon, they've talked about promises, but their delivery is, and as it stands today, on the 13th of February 2025, what have they actually delivered? They have bought the Westgate Centre at huge cost of borrowing, they have delivered nothing, they have scrapped community schemes, they have scrapped the community wardens, putting the public at risk from a community safety point of view, they have scrapped the refurbishment of play areas, they have cut funding to hard-working volunteer organisations without the courtesy of even letting them know the funding has been cut, they have shamefully, one of the cabinet members made drinking gestures when twinning was being talked about, having hypocritically applauded the youth when they came here for their events in Heiligen House, having actually come here and been applauded by the same person that is then taking the mick and implying that all they do is go on a jolly. So this is a hypocritical administration now trying to move a shameful publicity stunt, and you have to ask why. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they've got an item that's coming up they don't want to get to. A catastrophic failure of process, a catastrophic failure to the people on the local plan, a catastrophic failure of information to people that they needed and might have responded differently to on Regulation 18, and going back to their old ways of sprinkling travellers like fairy dust across this borough, which even the travellers admitted at the meeting of the sporting village they didn't want. But they're trying to get it through the back door by gerrymandering this process, by manipulating the procedure into talking for 25 minutes about something that doesn't exist. It's shameful, Mr. Mayor, and I'm quite surprised that the monitoring officer has actually allowed it to go this far.
Thank you, Councillor Baggott. Councillor Power.
You power, you're a legend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I stand here as an elected member for Langdon Park, but also a cabinet member for jobs, skills and local economy. This affords me the opportunity to work across all 5 towns. Looking at this alternative budget, I'm not sure if across the chamber they're aware that Langdon, Basildon or Pitsea even exist. Absolutely nothing in this one-page, barely thought out about, waste of time delivers anything for our residents of this borough. We have set out 5 clear ambitions, simple things that our residents deserve. I will remind you. 1, fix the bins. This alternative budget, no, sticks to the same old system that lost them control of the council and ignores the response of over 8,000 residents of this borough. Number 2, regenerating the town centres. Nope, nothing. 3, building homes for Basildon residents. This budget, no plans and probably no local plan. That would be scrapped quicker than they scrapped their own budget tonight.
Yes.
Making communities safer, nothing. That was eloquently put by Councillor McGeorge herself. And back in Basildon businesses, Councillor Barnes, thank you for your advice and guidance. But something you may not know about me is I'm not afraid of hard work and I'm not afraid of a challenge. And neither are the officers of this council. We will work and we will deliver a Basildon Construction Academy. And as for something to cushion the blow, again, there's nothing in this budget. I will happily repeat myself and the fellow councillors on the right side of the chamber. We are an administration that delivers, we have ambition, and we make this council work for the people of the whole borough. This document just proves how little you've done for the past 3 years and how little you plan to do for the future of Basildon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Power. Councillor Myers, you indicated you wanted to speak in substantive. Do you wish to speak in the amendment as differently? Right, okay, thank you. The next speaker is Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't get the Basildon Conservatives, you know, and I want to be able to thank Councillor McGurran for being able to present the document dated, as Councillor Baggott quite rightly reminded us, of the 13th of February 2025. Just so you're aware, that is today, so it's your document. It's called the Alternative 2025-26 Budget by the Conservative Group, so I'm assuming your document. So I want to thank Councillor McGurran for exposing this. He's been exposing things all his career, and I'm glad that he's been able to expose the Conservative budget.
I'm not Jamie McCovey, you know.
Exposing the Conservative budget, may I add. I want to just come to some of the comments from Councillor Baggott tonight. He criticises the budget process that has been followed. He sat in the very same cabinet meetings that I sat in. He was asked about any items that he wanted to add onto the budget. He was louder tonight in interrupting people than he was at the cabinet meeting where we're discussing the budget, and he was invited by the leader to be able to address any questions that he had on the budget in the first place. Now, I do want to address some comments that Councillor Baggott has made. The very first council meeting I ever sat in 6 years ago, where Councillor Baggott got up and he grandstanded and he said, there are no monopoly on good ideas. He once believed that every councillor was able to make a decision and be able to make decisions that benefited their residents. But every time an opposition member got up and proposed an amendment, he rejected it. He doesn't believe what he says then. And when it comes to trust and transparency and decision-making processes, what we see tonight is an absolute mess of what the Conservative group actually think of their own policies. We started the municipal year in August with the Conservatives of Wickford delivering a leaflet criticising the £80,000 investment of the area committees that they were being given the freedom to be able to invest in. They then backtracked on that and then decided to believe in the area committee process and are able to bring forward particular ideas. Now, I've sat in area committee meetings with the Conservative group. I know they split 3 ways in voting for a bench, but it's okay. It's okay. The Wickford area committee last week, 3 Wickford Conservative councillors split 3 ways on voting for a bench. That's okay. It's democracy. You're allowed to vote whichever way you want. Got no issues. I then hear the Billericay Conservatives on Facebook on Tuesday night celebrating the investments that they've made because of the area committees. I hear Councillor Schrader, or I read on Councillor Schrader's blog last night, bemoaning the fact that the area committee in Billericay is the only committee that they have a majority on, yet the electorate saw to that. They made sure that that was the only committee that they had a say in. So we're against it in August, we're in favour of it in November, we're against it in January, we're back in favour of it on the 12th of February, and we're now against it on the 13th of February. Now, I've been criticised tonight for some tough decisions that have had to be made. The tough decisions that I've made have put more power in all 42 members of this borough, so that all 42 members are able to make a decision on which community groups they wish to support and the investments that they wish to make within the borough. I've been criticised by the shadow community spokesperson for not going to scrutiny enough. I haven't received a single email or a single phone call all municipal year from the shadow community spokesperson. I listened in to the Community and Engagement Scrutiny Committee a couple of weeks ago, where some items that I was criticised for not bringing to scrutiny actually came to overview and scrutiny 2 weeks before. Maybe the leader of the group just didn't get the memo in terms of the questions they wanted to be able to ask in the first place. But it's always somebody else's fault. So tonight, we see what their alternative is. Criticising us all year. Standing up, making pointless statements, then when they get the opportunity to back it up in an alternative budget, it's not there at all. Making statements, empty promises. Out of power, out of office, out of ideas, that's where you belong.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. That concludes the debate on the amendment. Right, okay, Councillor. I haven't got their names down. They should wave their hands high in the air so I can see from way over here. Okay, so Councillor Brown and then Councillor Ansell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that the reason that the Tories are probably against their own alternative budget is because it has nothing for Billericay in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Ansell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having read the Conservatives' attempt at an alternative budget, I can understand why I don't want it to see the light of day this evening. My colleagues already exposed that the Conservatives want to keep their disastrous bin system that costs more, overspends to the point of £2 million plus, delivers less of a service for residents with a bi-monthly black sack collection and sends fly tipping through the roof. When it comes to area committees, this administration is empowering communities and supporting local charities in the amazing work that they do in our wards. In Friends, we've made good use of the area committee funding to support the trailblazing work of La Danse Fantastique to work in partnership with NHS to support people and help people with Parkinson's. We have supported the Friends Community Centre to upgrade its facilities to allow it to put on more of a service for people and help secure its long-term viability. And we've brought back the crunch. And at our next area committee meeting, there will be further items to provide support for local sports clubs, more community centres and Gateway FM. And the Tories would pull this funding and rip another tear in the social fabric of our community in the process. I've heard the contributions of Conservatives on tax this evening, and Mr. Mayor, I cannot believe the cheek. It wasn't long ago that a Conservative councillor in this room said he was proud to be raising council tax. And we now know, Mr. Mayor, that they'd be raising council tax again too. And talking as a business owner myself, SMEs up and down the country and here in Basildon are paying the price for their government's hike in corporation tax. They tax success, Mr. Mayor, they tax success, and they hammered people for aspiring to go out there and make it in the world. So, Mr. Mayor, we judge them by their actions, not by their words. And that's why we will never, never take any lessons on tax from the Conservatives. And Mr. Mayor, throwing out the old quote that Labour run out of other people's money, well, I think everyone in Thurrock knows what party bankrupted their council. It was the Conservative Party. Tax raisers and bankrupters. Mr. Mayor, and everyone in this borough who's paying more on their mortgage knows who crashed the economy. And that's why, Mr. Mayor, last year they decided to turf out the Conservative Party, not just in Basildon, but in Britain as a whole. So, needless to say, Mr. Mayor, I'll be voting against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ansell. We've now reached the end of the debate on the amendment. I shall move straight to the vote. He doesn't get to wind up, no. All those in favour, please indicate. All those against? And any abstentions? And I take it that, thank you, thank you. Well, this is not a conversation across, the room, thank you. So, how many abstentions were there? Thank you. And I take it those that haven't raised their hands in any are not voting, so that's fine. Thank you. The amendment falls. Going back to the substantive, Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This is a little bit longer than the last speech I made. Ensuring the safety and well-being of everyone who lives, works or visits the borough has always been and will always be one of this administration's highest priorities. Every individual, regardless of whether they're a resident, a business owner or a visitor, deserves to feel safe and secure. A safe environment fosters a sense of community and trust, and it enables residents to live their lives without fear or worry. It will also encourage growth and prosperity in the borough, which will benefit us all. Over the past year, we have been working tirelessly on a variety of initiatives and programmes aimed at improving safety within our community. Our goal has always been to take a proactive approach, addressing issues before they become larger problems and ensuring the needs of vulnerable groups are met. As we look ahead to the next year, we remain fully committed to continuing these efforts and expanding our safety initiatives. Just yesterday, as the leader said earlier, we held our first ever Community Safety Summit, a pivotal event where we took time to listen to our residents, businesses and local organisations. Through open dialogue, we gained valuable insights into the concerns of the community, and in response, we've developed and are implementing proposals aimed at addressing these concerns. These proposals are designed to tackle both the visible and hidden aspects of crime and safety. In addition, there will be a follow-up event next Wednesday in the Eastgate for more members of the public to come and give their views. We're proud to have launched the Women's Safety Charter in our borough, a vital step towards ensuring that women and girls feel safe, respected and protected. As part of this initiative, we submitted a bid for funding to implement the Make Space for Girls project, an innovative initiative designed to empower young girls and women by providing safe spaces where they can access support, education and mentorship. This project aims to break down barriers to include and build a culture of safety and respect for women across the borough. As an administration, we understand the devastating impact that domestic abuse has on individuals and families, and we are taking significant steps to strengthen our response to this issue. We are working towards gaining the Domestic Abuse Housing Alliance accreditation, otherwise known as DAHA, a crucial certification that ensures that we provide a safe and effective interventions in cases of domestic abuse. This accreditation is a mark of our commitment to delivering high-quality services for survivors while holding abusers to account. We are focused on meeting the diverse needs of survivors and offering them the support and resources necessary to rebuild their lives in a safe environment. In a further demonstration of our commitment to support individuals in crisis, we launched the J9 initiative. This initiative designates our council building as a safe space where anyone in need of immediate assistance can seek refuge and support. Whether someone is experiencing domestic abuse, feeling vulnerable, or facing other crises, they'll be able to approach our building for help without fear of judgment. The J9 initiative also encourages local organisations and business to take part in ensuring these safe spaces are readily available for those who need them. A comprehensive evaluation of the town centre is underway. We're assessing the various areas, including identifying any so-called black spots, locations where crime or safety concerns may be more prevalent. As part of this process, we are evaluating whether we need more CCTV cameras in high-risk areas. This will include car parks, pathways and alleyways. We'll also be making the necessary improvements to the physical infrastructure, such as enhanced lighting and ensuring that public spaces are well maintained and safe for all. As the leader has already announced, Wickford Police Station will reopen as a fully functioning community safety hub, acting as a central point for community engagement, safety coordination and as another base for officers. We'll be working with County Hall to turn the street lights back on. So many residents have said that lighting is an issue in their area, and we'll be looking to bring those back as soon as we can. So whilst the opposition may focus on the reduction of the community wardens as a point of concern, I believe it's crucial to acknowledge that the primary goal should be to prevent incidents from happening in the first place. In an ideal world, there'll be no need to react to crime because it simply wouldn't occur. That's why administration is focused on creating proactive measures on addressing the root causes of crime and vulnerability before they escalate into larger issues. We're working tirelessly to create a borough where safety isn't just a reaction to crime, but a built-in foundational aspect of our community. Our work is far from over, but we're determined to continue making meaningful progress in ensuring that every person in our borough feels safe and supported. From tackling domestic abuse and enhancing women's safety to supporting at-risk youth and improving our town infrastructure, we're taking comprehensive steps to create a safer, stronger community for everybody.
Councillor McGeorge, can you turn the mic off, please? Thank you.
Procedural Rule 1512, Mr Mayor.
I'll have to look that up, thank you. Point of order, yeah?
Yeah. No, it's a procedural rule.
Could you further explain that, thank you?
Yes, surely, Mr Mayor. Given that there is an item of great public interest which needs to be debated in this meeting, i.e. the amendment to the consultation for the local plan, I want to lift the guillotine so that the public can hear that debate taking place in all its glory.
Okay, that is a vote that we'll vote on immediately. So, have you got a seconder? Deputy Councillor Blake. So we will now vote on whether to lift the guillotine. That means extending the meeting beyond 11:30. All those in favour, please indicate. All those against, please indicate. Are there any abstentions? Thank you. That motion has...
Chairman.
Oh, and
Mayor.
Mr Aldridge. Councillor Aldridge, did you vote, Councillor Aldridge? Are you abstaining? Thank you.
Mayor.
That vote, sorry, I have to declare the initial...
Okay,
yeah,
my apologies.
thank you. That vote failed, so passed. We're stopping at 11:30. Thank you. Councillor Blake.
Yeah, I'm not very good at procedurals, but I'd like the member over there to retract those comments that we are racist.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Councillor Yacoub, do you wish to clarify your comments at this point? No. Councillor Mordecai.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I really strongly object to being called a racist. Hang on. I'm Jewish, and I've just heard from the Labour side being called racist. I am highly offended, Mr. Mayor. That was the words used. That I am racist.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mordecai. Thank you. Councillor Mordecai. Unless you have a point of order, you have the opportunity to raise it with the monitoring officer after the meeting. Okay? Then we'll proceed.
Can we adjourn the meeting until we look for this procedural rule then, please? Procedural motion. So, because it's a serious enough.
I'll give you 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Members are beginning the meeting again shortly, momentarily. Okay, reconvening the meeting. Councillor Mordecai, have you got a point of order reference number? Thank you. We shall continue with the debate.
No, I wish to come, yeah. Under 23A, Mayor.
Councillor Blake.
Under 23A.
Thank you. I'll consult the monitoring officer. Members, if you'd like to be seated, thank you. Okay, under 23A is impugning improper motives and offensive behaviour. And I do not consider that to be offensive behaviour. There's racist remarks, but that is not directed at anyone in general, so that it cannot be against the member. So I'll be moving on, that's my decision. Thank you. Moving on, Councillor Myers, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and all members this evening for the excitement on a Thursday evening. One thing in this budget that's not been spoken about is investment in parks. So I'd like to talk about them and about the work that happened under the previous Conservative administration, which should be looked on with pride across this chamber, with over 2.3 million spent on improving play areas to repair, renovate and improve them, and to make them inclusive for all children, and especially making them accessible for children who are disabled or neurodivergent. With consultation on play equipment at local schools that takes into account the needs of all children to allow parents and their children to enjoy play across our borough. Let's look at the work that has taken place over the larger parts of Lake Meadows in Billericay and Northlands Park in Pitsea, including the new skate parks that have gone on over there. Complete transformations that are well used by all residents. Smaller areas such as Freeland's Open Space, Holy Cross, Jubilee Drive, Barn Hall in Wickford, Swanmead, Haverley and Ward Close in Langdon being thoroughly enjoyed, and showing that this Conservative administration had invested across the whole of this borough. These fully delivered play areas have seen incredible use and good support from parents with sensory play items and wheelchair accessible play equipment. Now I pay tribute to my former colleague, Jeff Henry, who led this project, at £900,000 per year. Yet in this budget, he has been cut by £750,000. There are originally still 7 years to go and a lot of play areas to renew. And in my ward of Carston and Crouch, a very large geographic area, there are play areas scheduled to be fulfilled but now lost in the ether. Sites such as Netherden Park, Elder Avenue, Crays Hill, Ramsden Bell House and Note Bridge, with no funding certainty. Despite record borrowing for the purchase of homeless accommodation and the vanity of the Westgate, a perfectly functioning shopping centre and a proposed arena, I wonder what the first show of this arena will be. Perhaps Monty Python's Labour's Flying Circus. It is borrowing to an extent that cannot be sustainable. Even the next agenda item seeks to increase the operational borrowing limits. But it's not investing this year on what residents need now and in the future, new and fully accessible play areas. These play areas and improvements improve physical and mental health, with parents able to interact with each other and children to play in new inclusive environments with their colleagues. Now, of course, the area committees have some capital funding on top of what is currently being suggested of £150,000 on park infrastructure. Now, of course, park infrastructure is a very vague term and could be to do with not just play areas, but improvements to bins, benches and the like in our parks. And there was even cuts on the Cabinet member efficiency savings to play equipment of £33,000 this year, and Parks and Countryside funding cut by £200,000 a year. So I asked the Cabinet member while doing these calculations whether he appreciates the need and the usefulness and the desire for our play areas to be inclusive for all of our children across the borough and not to let them be run down in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Blake.
First of all, to Melissa, when you do that next thing for the crime prevention better than cure, I absolutely agree with you. Could you make sure I get an invite for that personally, so I can come along from my job capacity? Yeah. Just a couple of things to mention here. Jack was a little bit out of order, if you don't mind me saying, Jack, when you said we were doing nothing for the 75th, we don't care about the area. anyone in this room who will remember, we've done an awful lot for the 70th. We thought about very strongly of that, and we would have done something for the 75th. And I think you know that as well as anybody else. We've done an enormous amount of work. Yeah, so it's good. Good to see that the in-cab technology is going to be coming in to continue the good work that I started. We keep on hearing that it was never on the agenda. It was on the agenda. Absolutely no problems about that whatsoever. Councillor Cube and Councillor Baker. Councillor Cube says she's proud of everything in this budget, and Councillor Baker said Basel and Labour Party deliver on promises. Yeah. That is quite ironic. It's not actually true. By your own admission, you've put the cost of the bins up from £25, which you said would be, to £50. You also said the £50 bin for the initial one, you was going to reduce to 25. Where's that? Can't see that in any of your documentation. You said to the residents of this borough, the £50 charge that the Conservatives have put in, we will reduce to 25 for 5 years. That's what you put. What that actually means, the people that have been hit hard by that, and I won't pick on Billericay because everyone's NIMBYism or Billericay Council. Let's just pick on Wickford, for example. 6,500 residents actually have the one green bin. 500 more have more than one bin. Total charge to those residents, and bear in mind, you Wickford Council got to put you up there. Total charge to those residents for a promise that they said wouldn't happen. One is total charge of £175,000 being charged to the residents of Wickford, which this Labour Party said they wouldn't do. And if anyone needs any evidence of that, it's there in green. Quite clearly says there, Labour will cut the cost to £25 and freeze it for 5 years. So when you said earlier you don't break promises, a lie, a Labour lie. You've done it. You have broken your promise on this alone. And you've cost the residents just of Wickford £175,000, just them on their own. So I hope you're really proud of that. When everybody in here puts their hands up for the budget, what you are actually costing those people in those areas. Absolutely disgusting. I do welcome the part where the Business Council of Callahan said regarding the businesses, putting investment into bricklayers and chippies and all that, and totally agree with that. I think it's great. I was, as you can probably tell, I was never that great at school, but I was very good at using my hands and becoming an engineer and a tool maker. So I don't think we do enough for apprentices, full stop. Kerry actually said as well, which quite interests me, that Ivy Verde, the house is all coming in-house. So Ivy Verde, do their members know that it's all coming in? It's actually coming in-house. I wasn't sure, maybe I'm wrong, I wasn't sure that decision actually been made. But tonight we heard that it has been made and it will be coming in-house, which is quite a surprise. Regarding the weekly collection of black bins, I still think it should be fortnightly. I'm absolutely adamant about that. It should still be fortnightly. No problems at all. I actually think what we'll actually see, what we'll actually see is recycling will go down. Absolutely. And we will also see the disposal going to waste, residual waste going to landfill, our costs will go up. Now, I should be asking officers to let me know exactly where we are now for recycling and for residual waste. And as you quite rightly said, and I give credit to most of the governors, you'll be judged on how it comes about and you'll monitor it. And I hope you do, because it'll be very interesting to see what the outcome of that is. But what I will say, we heard tonight several times, they're proud of their budget, they don't do any lies at all, and yet here we are clearly showing Labour lies. Labour lies. And the people of Wickford, and Billericay and every other part of the borough are going to suffer because of Labour lies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I'd hear what the Conservatives had to say with my brief about HAS and use this opportunity to respond. They didn't. I know my predecessor quoted me when I said I don't like to bad my predecessor, but I normally save that for announcements where you don't get the right to reply. And one of the big causes for the council's financial woes is the cost of temporary accommodation. Scroll back to when you come into this power, May 21, it was in the hundreds of thousands. If we followed your policies, this April, £3 million. Councillor Baggett, if you don't understand about this temporary accommodation, read your agendas on the email and you'll know about this cabinet meetings. And that's why we've had to borrow money. Now, if you don't understand bricks and mortar, right, you buy bricks and mortar in this country, it only goes up in value. Look on Rightmove. So we have a budget to go up to borrow to build and buy. We own the asset, and then we will see what the social housing looks when properties are being built under the local plan, and Councillor Del Brown with a big stick are making sure about the 50% affordable housing and what affects it. As Councillor Baggett, if you listen, you may be a more learned man. And once we're in that situation, we can look to liquidate the asset and make a small profit for the taxpayer. At the time, when Councillor Callaghan was previously leader, he made some investments where we borrowed some money, and that brought in £4 million. At last year's budget, he was claiming that was your idea. Wow. And remember, I said, no, that was Councillor Callaghan. You go, no, it wasn't. So it's all right when he borrows money and it brings in £4 million, right? And we're doing a similar sort of thing with temporary accommodation by buying property. So instead of us paying £100 top whack a night to put someone in a really grotty place with shared kitchens and bathrooms, I think if you put a cat or a dog there, you'd have the RSPCA knocking. They're not nice. And we shouldn't be putting our own people in our times who've been turfed out by the Rigsbys of this world. Right? They should be living in decent, clean accommodation with their own kitchen and bathroom. Isn't that why our predecessors fought in 2 world wars so we could have it better? Not turn the clock back to Victorian England. Right? No, never again.
Land for heroes,
that's quite right, a land fit for heroes. And that's what we're focusing on. And that improves the health outcomes, the education attainments when people are living in stable conditions until we deal with this housing crisis and the lack of affordable housing. Just look on Rightmove and compare that with the local area housing allowance and see how many properties come up, not in a day, not in a week, try a month. You could probably count them all on one digit of one hand. Very few. You sat there and let Chapelgate grow and grow with weeds. Fiddled around, instead of getting it built, do we call it Vera Duckworth House or Ken Barlow House? I scrapped that, sent Dominic, sent Patrick, job done, the builders are on site, the work's coming on sooner, that's going to help with our temporary accommodation and local people looking to put their first feet on the ladder. We have done a lot, and you just go on about, oh, it's borrowing. Yes, our leader is Callaghan, but his first name's not Jim, and you ain't Margaret Thatcher. And making them arguments, trying to insinuate that our leader is the Jim Callaghan of the 70s, you couldn't be further from the truth. I'm not saying anything derogatory. I didn't want to get you in trouble, Mr. Leader, with some of your party supporters comparing you to Tony Blair. But I'm sure you take that as a compliment, so happy to do so. And then we hear other things tonight about scrapping these park wardens. Well, one evening 2 summers ago, I'm working my bit, talking to my residents around the Woodlands estate, and there's these 3 little idiots on moped bikes. I thought, oh, if you was only a bit older. Just stand like that. Oh, did you fall off your bike? Never mind, but they're children, so I couldn't do that. And it was a lovely summer's afternoon, and residents are out in the street, so I called 999, very nice police officer. As expected, I'm really sorry. If we can get someone out to deal with these idiots on the mopeds, because it was like watching Steve McQueen where they're driving around the Woodlands open space, and there's people coming home from work along Melbourne Path, which we've funded and you voted against. And then when I went to Tesco's, you call them community safety wardens, I just remembered a report that was put to us, cleaning company from Southend. You call them tomatoes, I call them something else, yeah? And what was they doing at Tesco's? Helping the Tesco shareholders defend their profits by going after shoplifters. Well, if they've got their own security, That's for Tesco's to sort out. We was paying for these community wardens. Instead of being out in the Woodlands estate, they're looking after Tesco shareholders' interests. So what we're putting here down tonight is fixing the mess we have been left. And I think, had we not had those all-out elections, the previous administration would be able to work well with their colleagues in Thurrock and saying, how do you deal with a bankruptcy notice? Because that's what we was facing, because you was going to do nothing about temporary accommodation. You was wedded, fettered to a corpse of these rotten bin service. Is it because those bags as Brentwood got? Is there some Mrs Bouquets who come to your party meetings and go, oh no, we can't have those Basildon bags. Oh no, we'll have the Brentwood system. It doesn't matter if it's stock pongs, I'll just get the zoo flora out. You know, if that's what your supporters want, that's fine. Yeah? You can put down your election leaflets for going back to minging bags, just like Brentwood's got, and you can keep your hyacinth bouquets happy. But for the people who live in the real world, they've got to deal with it, yeah? I mean, it's what was, I'd like to say, happy birthday to Councillor Walter Brown. He may have breached the council's constitution. I'm disappointed you got the rules and the constitution, because I've been telling Councillor Brown he had to buy a cake for all 42 members and officers and he didn't get his wallet out. Maybe I should have sent Moses then. If he could park the Red Sea, maybe he could park Councillor Walter Brown's wallet. It's worth a punt. So there was one thing I did have on the tip of my tongue, but it's been a long night. But I've heard nothing from the other side. Absolutely nothing. Just all this, all that. Nothing positive for the borough. And I think when we face these all-out elections for the new authority, for the new shadow authority, which will be the first test of councillors, looking at my Labour colleagues, obviously, people, you've got the midterm blues, which every new government has. But I think you'll be able to knock on doors and say, this is what we have done. Yes. That's what I was going to say about the Westgate. Now, they're saying we shouldn't have borrowed to buy that. It's perfectly fine. We had sharp practices in that car park. How many people, I mean, if former Councillor Andrew Golden was in, I mean, they'd done a Channel 5 documentary about it. Going down, trying to catch people out, oh, that machine's not working, small print, small print, small print. And the amount of people who didn't live in the borough, but came to the borough to spend their money, which they're very welcome, that for them was the kiss of death. Don't come back to Basildon, because we had sharp practices at car park. There are some stuff that's yet to be signed off and agreed. It's exciting. It's what residents are asking for with the retail experience. And I'd like to thank Councillor Callaghan. You had, what was it, 5 days to get that deal done? And the point Councillor Blake made about worried about recycling levels, I'm sure he'll agree with me. That wonderful directive signed by Donald Trump this week, banning plastic, ending the ban on plastic straws so people can buy a proper straw and not have their hot drink explode on them, as the President said, but they can get a McDonald's, they can have a proper straw and then put that in their recycling, right? And you'll get higher recycling with that when people have proper straws. See, Councillor Blake's agreeing with me. We're going to up our recycling just on that point alone. I'm very sure of that. But don't forget, your colleagues at county I've got plans to send all of the county's rubbish for incineration. And when you look at the story of incinerators, where they are, them authorities are not interested in recycling. They see the recycling as fuel for the incinerator. So county won't be too upset whatever happens with our recycling rate, because it's fuel for their incinerator. Right? And Gavin Callaghan is leading the fight on that appeal, because we're going to make sure people in Basildon don't have premature deaths from the carbon dioxide in high levels being issued out, which is bad for anyone with a respiratory illness and disease. And I'm surprised the Conservatives opposite didn't want to bring up about the incinerator tonight, because no one here wants to see someone have years knocked off their life because of an hard-nosed company picking out a poor area where they think they can burn other London's junk and threaten the health of our residents. And I'd like to thank Councillor Callaghan for his battle with County Oldham. And I'm sure he doesn't have to ask, but if he'd like me to take them all out one by one in the car park, be delighted. At County Oldham.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Adele Brown.
I am. Mr Mayor, colleagues and residents of Basildon. This is a really defining moment. As the leader began tonight, he explained how the reform that is happening to Essex has great opportunities and some sadness in the fact that we only have 3 budgets left to make a difference in this borough before we as councillors no longer get to sit in this chamber and no longer have the privilege to represent our residents in the way we do now. So it's important that we take this moment to make a change, and a change that is lasting and a change that matters. We're debating the future of our borough. When we think about our budget, yes, lots of numbers, money taken off here, money added on there, but it is all about our priorities and the things we want to do for our residents and the things that we know will make a difference. Tonight, it might not be a surprise to anyone that I want to talk about housing. I'm not going to go through the whole budget. I think we've heard a lot from all sides on various points of the budget, so I want to focus a little on housing for a moment. Because under this administration, we will prioritise, we will promise a home for every family, a future for every generation that starts with a secure home to live in. For years, without a local plan, the Tories, because of the decisions they made to withdraw local plans, we have seen in this borough developers run riot. We have seen developments being built without strategic infrastructure, without a strategic plan, because you decided to remove that plan. Without that plan, there is not protection for the types of communities that we should be seeing within our borough. You went on further. You ignored the housing crisis. You refused to build council homes. You let our list spiral out of control. You decided that the best thing to do was to push residents into temporary accommodation that was completely unfit for those families.
Shame.
That ends now. With a £40 million investment in council homes and acquisitions. This budget stops that. 210 new homes unlocked through brownfield funding. 75 new temporary accommodation units right here in Basildon. We are changing people's lives. We know that developments of property that are planned with matched infrastructure can change communities. We all here live in a new town. 75 years ago, this was greenbelt land, had no roads, had no schools, had no large employers like Ford's. And that changed because someone made the decision that a plan was needed to provide homes for people. And a plan was needed to ensure that the infrastructure that supports communities would be delivered. We are making homes a priority, but homes for local people. We are ensuring that Basildon residents come first. The leader has already tonight explained why we're strengthening the Basildon First Charter, why we are ensuring that homes are marketed for the first 12 months to enable our local residents to have those first choice of properties. Our regeneration must also work for local people to help them get on the housing ladder. As we see further development, that gives us opportunities in terms of Section 106 monies. It enables our planning officers to get the absolute maximum out of each development so that monies can be used for infrastructure. And by that, we are talking about roads, we are talking about schools, dentists, hospitals, green spaces, parks, all the things that enable people who have a home to be part of a community and to thrive. But we recognise recognise affordable housing, I say all the time, is not a description, it's a legal definition, and there are several types of affordable homes. Kev's laughing because we have this discussion often. There is social housing, there is affordable private rents, there is schemes that will enable people to have the opportunity to buy their own homes through first-time buyer discounts and shared ownership. It is critical that our local plan reflects that, and through our local plan, we can ensure that affordable homes are in the right categories, in the right places for our residents.
Yeah.
In order to support that further, we are ensuring that we are bringing forward a first-time buyer's mortgage guarantee scheme to Basildon. I will present a paper in this, well, probably early summer, explaining how that's going to work so that our residents have the opportunity to buy their first homes.
Yeah.
The leader often says that if you grow up in Basildon, if you work in Basildon, if you contribute to Basildon, you should be able to live in Basildon. That is what we will deliver. I can see I'm buzzing, so I'll just flick to the end, if that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought you might want to hurry me up a bit. I'll miss out 2 pages just for you. So, what I'm saying is tonight we're presenting a Labour budget full of Labour priorities and Labour values. But many of you in this room share those values. You share those priorities. Not because you're a member of the Labour Party, not because you're representing as a councillor, as a Labour councillor, but you do still share those values. And as a result, you know this borough needs a budget like we are presenting to you tonight. You know this budget is for a borough that cares. It's for a borough that wants to build homes. It's for a borough that wants a future. So tonight, I'm asking each and every one of you that cares about homes, that cares about schools, that cares about young people, that wants their streets to be safer and their lights to be on, to consider, do you share our values? And if you do, vote for this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. At the end of the debate, Councillor Callaghan, you have 10 minutes to wind up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll do this in reverse order and begin by saying that I agree, obviously, with every word that Councillor Brown has just said.
Always.
Always. One small correction to Councillor Smith. It is Sir Tony Blair, but no worries, we will leave that alone. I'm glad, actually, that Councillor Smith brought this up because I think it was missing in a lot of the contributions about temporary accommodation, because in every single Cabinet meeting we have held since July, including the one tonight that was available on Members.net for every single councillor to see the agenda and know it was happening, Councillor Baggott has either not turned up or he's walked out on those items. He has shown absolutely no interest all year on anything to do with temporary accommodation. And the reason why they don't want to talk about that is because if you look at the budget position on TA, if we carried on with their system of not buying any properties and not addressing it, then by year 3, the cost of temporary accommodation would have been £11 million. Right? That would have meant that the Conservative Party would have had to introduce a 15% rise in the council tax in order to balance the books and pay for the budget. Just like their mates in Thurrock, who crashed the Thurrock accounts, they would have had to do the same here with a 15% rise because they were not on top of the crisis. Councillor Blake talks about recycling. I have to say to him, look, we're not going to win the argument on recycling. And by that I mean you recycling the same old tired arguments with the same old tired people. I imagine that being the hill that you've chosen to die on. It really does make sense. They talk about the grass tax and the grass tax charge. I mean, it is a fabulous leaflet that you continue to highlight. And it is still our intention to introduce that policy. Obviously, we have inherited a £2.3 million overspend this year, but we are in the next financial year working through income generation schemes, as I've outlined in the budget today. But I also note that in the alternative budget, there was no change to the grass charge changes. So whether you voted for the Conservative budget or the Independent and Labour budget, you would have ended up with the same cost in Wickford that you were alluding to there. So you didn't. He also seems to have a problem that it was a Scouser that has fixed the Mancunians' problem. Sorry, you're not actually a Scouser, I get that.
No.
Councillor Myers,
Right.
as close as. Councillor Myers talks about what will be the first show in the new arena. Well, it won't be Jurassic Park because the dinosaurs are already here for everybody to see. He is right, though, that we do all miss the videos of Jeff Henry and Craig Rimmer playing on children's equipment in parks. That was great fun to watch. Councillor McGeorge was right that prevent is always better, and that was something that came across well last night at the Community Safety Summit. Councillor Barnes, just a note here of caution. When it comes to Councillor Smith, you are confusing populism with being popular. Councillor Ferguson summed it up well. Confused.com couldn't keep up with the Conservatives' view on area committees. Councillor Baker is right. Promises made, promises kept. I have to say, I thought that the best speech of the night was Councillor Emma Callaghan.
Not biased.
Not biased. It was a great maiden speech, and Casper did agree with every word of it. Councillor Harrison is right to talk about the chaotic Tories. Councillor Power was powerful in talking about visible leadership that we need. Councillor Palmer, an amazing maiden speech. Talking about the arts and culture. Councillor Sargent, there was a lot said, but one of the things that she said was that we have removed the money for side by side, and the whole purpose of side by side, I introduced it, was to foster greater community cohesion. Well, the election of a Reform MP tells you everything you need to know about the fact that that has not worked, right? And ironically, that wasn't the most stupid thing she said in her contribution tonight either. Councillor Schrader, lots in this. I do find it odd that they're talking about the debt position. They didn't bother to turn up, their leader didn't bother to turn up to Cabinet this evening. If he had done, then he would have known that we have reduced the debt by a considerable amount this evening with an action that we have taken. And let me say this really clearly, because they talk about the reserves position. There is over 30 million in the reserves, 18 million of which is unearmarked reserves. I will never take lessons from the Conservative Party about reserves when you lot gave £1.7 million in golden handshakes to officers that were booted out of this country. Taking that money out of reserves when it could have been spent on other things. Councillor Westwick was superb. Councillor Ferguson and Yakub right to talk about data and all things AI. These guys couldn't spell it. Councillor Jeffrey, odd that he keeps talking about Morrison's. He keeps making things up about knowing emails that are on my desk and the chief exec's desk. I don't know if he has a source in the council, but whatever it is, he seems to be making it up as he goes along. And then finally, I want to address Councillor Baggott, because he talks about the fact that the £2.3 million overspend on waste wasn't real because that wasn't a real number. And of course, he is actually right. The overspend was around £2.9 million. The 2.3 million just refers to the overspend in the waste service. In their alternative budget, they didn't address the fact that actually it is more expensive to go with their system than it is to go with the new system that we're introducing on the 28th of April. He talks about the borrowing being out of control, but at the same time, as Councillor Smith alluded to, they were in favour of all of the commercial asset acquisitions that we undertook that were generating revenue for the council. They did not come up in 3 years with a single income generation scheme or idea for the council. And he tempts me, they all do. They keep saying that it's all smoke and mirrors, that it's gaslighting, that we haven't delivered anything. Let's put the record straight. 13 days after we took control, we purchased the Westgate Shopping Centre. Since May, there is 91 brand new council homes that are coming. We've reintroduced the crunch service, saved our PCSOs, introduced the Parkside Carol services. We launched the Meet the Buyer events to make sure that Basildon, Bricky, Chippies and Sparkies are first in line to build those new homes. We've completed the Regulation 18 consultation to ensure we are still in line with the government's timeline. We've secured 1,000 Ring doorbells for victims of domestic abuse. We've raised over 5,500 presents for children in our Christmas gift drive. We put the Christmas lights back on. We hosted the borough's biggest ever skills show. We launched the Warm Home Guarantee, the first in the country to launch the Warm Homes Guarantee. We launched the Educational Essentials Bursary. We've halved the winter break on the green waste. We've purchased 350 homes for TA. The Langdon regeneration is unlocked. We opened the View Cinema. We launched the Summer of Sport. And yes, we have delivered Baz Exit. And it has been 9 months. So just wait. Once this budget is passed tonight, once we are given a full 4 years to implement all of our changes, you just wait to see what we do with this borough, Mr. Mayor. I commend the budget. I urge people to get behind it. It is a budget for all 5 towns of this borough, and I ask members to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. We now proceed to the vote. The recommendations are on page 16 of the agenda. All those in favour, please show. All those against? And any abstentions? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8. Capital and Investment Strategy Interim Report for 2024-2025. I now call on Councillor Callaghan, Leader of the Council, to present the report. He has up to 10 minutes.
Well, Mr. Mayor, after that budget, which is gone through, a brilliant budget for the borough of Basildon, the Community Safety Hub coming to Wickford High Street. Congratulate the one Wickford councillor that voted for it. Mr. Mayor, the report before members provides them with an update on our Treasury management and capital strategy for the first half of this year. The report outlines how we're managing the council's finances, and as we have just debated long into the night, we're managing them superbly. Keeping an eye on risks and making sure we invest wisely in Basildon's future. Our capital programme this year is ambitious. The acquisition of the Westgate Shopping Centre, for example, was a major step in the regeneration of the town. I think I should just let people know more about that, because the regeneration of the Westgate has been the key domino that has meant that we have seen more investment in our town centre. Because we took the intervention we did with the Westgate, it has meant that in respect of other developments, we have seen almost £160 million of private sector money come into our town centre for the development of the Market pavement site. And we will be seeing the hoardings going up next week and the demolition work begin on that. So that investment that we have made in the Westgate has been critical. And of course, as I alluded to earlier on, we are now bringing forward the planning applications for the Westgate. Central to that will be the investment that we will make in conjunction with the private sector for a multi-purpose arena in our town centre. And that, I think, is something that should be welcomed. It will attract money, it will people, it will attract jobs and businesses into Basildon Town Centre, giving people a reason to come to Basildon, and we are working hard to deliver that, and that is why the investment we made at the start of this year is so critical and important. Some of the other projects in the pipeline that we know about are the affordable housing, so the Sempre housing schemes that we're bringing forward. So there are hundreds of homes coming forward. We are looking at 91 of those being council properties at Chapelgate, as Councillor Smith was talking about earlier on, at Broadmain and then into Pitsea. We've got more coming forward in Mill Green and in some areas throughout the course of this year as well. So the investment strategy will be updated accordingly. We have the ambulance hub as well as part of the investment strategy, which is critical up at the top of the Nethermain, helping to bring the ambulance service closer to the hospital, which will be something that they want as well. Our investments, and it was alluded to earlier on, I led the council back in 2019 to 2021 when we engaged in those commercial deals that we put through as a council. The Conservative Party voted against every single one of them. They are generating a significant return for the council. In fact, all of our investments are averaging a return of just under 4.5%, which, as we know, is helping to keep some of the services that our residents rely on going. Where would we be as a council if we had not done so much in terms of those commercial acquisitions? Those strategic investments, and I alluded to the fact that just this evening at Cabinet, and it was part 2 information, but this evening at Cabinet we debated one of those commercial investments, and we're sticking to the plan. SIPFA tells us that we have to look every year at disposal of assets and ways of reducing the council's debt, and we can say that we have done that, and we have acted prudently, and we have done well to keep the council's commercial portfolio in good shape. So overall, we are taking a balanced approach. I think it is worth saying that, as I said to council when we came forward with the amendment to the capital investment programme around the temporary accommodation monies that we were going to spend on acquiring new sites, every single site that we are acquiring has to have a sell-on value. So it has to have profit. It has to be something that if we no longer require it for temporary accommodation, once it has stabilised, we would be able to sell it on and make profit for the taxpayer. I don't want to do anything that is going to leave the council in negative equity. So I think, again, on the TA side of things, that's balanced. We'll see a reduction this year in the debt around Sempre housing as the Chapelgate development and some of those other developments come forward and are completed. Similarly, as I say, we are always looking at our commercial portfolio for disposals as well, Mr. Mayor. We have to be realistic about the challenges, interest rates, construction delays, build costs, and we are making sure that we are on top of all of those risks and opportunities. So, of course, it is challenging. I don't think any officer of the council or any elected member of the council wants to necessarily be elected to this place in order to play a state agent. That's not necessarily what we want to do, but because of 14 years of austerity and the savage cuts to local government finance from David Cameron and George Osborne and Liz Truss, you know, all of those smash hits that we all had to deal with, we've been left in a position where the council is having to do this. I hope, not linked to this, but I hope that there might be movement on the HRA borrowing cap as well, which might enable us to do some more stuff around council housing. But, Mr. Mayor, I think, in short, we are focused on keeping the council's finances stable whilst making long-term investments that will benefit the whole community. I commend this to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. We have reached the 11:30 and the guillotine has come into effect. So we will now vote on item 8 as per the recommendations. All those in favour? Oh yeah. List for noting. It's on the second page. Okay. Item number 9, appointment of the council's monitoring officer. Formally moved. Do you formally move? Formally moved. Thank you. All those in favour, please indicate. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that's unanimous. Item number 10, the draft local plan regulation 18 consultation part 2. Councillor Brown, do you formally move?
Yes.
Thank you, that's formally moved. Open to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. All those against.
You don't want the residents to have a consultation. Unbelievable.
Thank you, thank you. Had enough of that tonight, thanks. Any abstentions? Thank you, we got an abstention now. Thank you very much. Item number 11. There are no emergency notices of motion for debate. Therefore, I close the meeting. Good night and have a safe journey home.